Chapter 802. Xiao Mohai's figure disappeared at the door of the dining room. His back was light and cheerful, and everyone could see that he was happy and satisfied from the bottom of his heart. He had never thought that he needed to be in a high position in his life. It was important to have self-knowledge and self-control. It just so happened that Xiao Mohai had both of these qualities. He was capable, but not at the top. He was ambitious, but not too ambitious. The military rank of Major General and the position of Commander of the Army Group. At that time, Xiao Mohai's biggest wish was nothing more than to go further and become a Lieutenant General, or at most a Lieutenant General with a higher title. When he came to the desert prison, his military rank was promoted by one level, and he guarded the yellow sand for thousands of miles. His biggest ambition was nothing more than to leave here and not be looked down upon. That was all. Deputy Secretary General of the Army Headquarters, Chief of the General Staff, Commander of the Navy of Zhongzhou State, Commander of the Blood Battalion. Each of these positions was more prominent than the other. These were all figures standing at the top of the military. Xiao Mohai believed that he was qualified for these positions, but just as he said, he was cautious and conscientious, as if he was walking on thin ice. This was not the feeling he liked. These positions were too heavy, and he felt that they were not suitable for him. He just wanted to leave the desert prison. If he could follow Li Tianlan, that would be the best. Not to mention Li Tianlan's future position. Even now, his position was not bad if he followed Li Tianlan. It didn't matter if he was a butler, a servant, or a servant. In more than a year, he didn't feel that Li Tianlan looked down on him. As long as Li Tianlan didn't look down on him, no one dared to look down on him at all. He was the butler of Emperor Dong's palace. He was really competent for this position, and he could do it very happily. This was the best situation. Li Tianlan watched his back disappear, shook his head slightly, glanced at Saint on the screen of the mobile phone, and whispered, "I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that he has no ambition. I don't know what he thinks, but even if he is content with the status quo, his current choice is not a loss." Saint laughed. He had already known everything about Xiao Mohai, and he was also very satisfied with Li Tianlan's arrangement. To expand the territory, he naturally needed ambitious generals, and the most important thing for the people around him was to be content. Xiao Mohai was undoubtedly well-behaved. Don't look down on yourself and Emperor Dong's palace. The chief steward of Emperor Dong's palace has a high status now. Can you imagine what the chief steward of Emperor Dong's palace will be like in 10 years? What about 20 years later? At that time, the position of general might not necessarily be enough to exchange for the position of butler, let alone the position of chief butler. Li Tianlan nodded. Now that you mention it, I'm looking forward to it. Saint smiled. His eyes were drifting, and he seemed to be yearning. He had seen a dynasty that truly belonged to a person. Even though he had only seen it in a blue notebook, seeing it was seeing it. He knew very well what the housekeeper of such a dynasty meant to the entire dark world. The only pity was that in the dynasty he saw, the chief butler was not Xiao Mohai. How are your injuries? Li Tianlan asked suddenly. Saint did not participate in the fighting and games in the chaos of Eastern Europe, but he was also seriously injured. Not only him, but military counselor, Azura and general, the three supermasters of Samsara Palace, were also seriously injured. Saint military advisor General, Azura. They were the strongest 4 of the 12 supermasters of Samsara Palace. Their injuries all came from the sword of summer solstice, when they raided Mount Dibbing. Just one sword. Azura and General were out of danger not long ago. Their vital signs gradually stabilized, and they were still in a coma. Although military counselor was still walking in the outside world, he had never fought with anyone since then. He was like an ordinary person, and it was not until recently that he began to slowly recover. After that, Saint chose to recuperate in Linen. Finally, he broke through to the invincible realm in Linen. But his breakthrough was too intense. Instead of healing, his injuries got worse. Li Tianlan was not sure if he had recovered after more than a year. It's okay, Saint said thoughtfully. It's not a big problem to fight with others, but it will take some time to recover. Will it delay the progress? Li Tianlan frowned. Saint was 40 years old this year. It was not too early for him to break through to the invincible realm at the age of 39. In a few years his physical peak would pass. In the case of physical decline, it was extremely difficult to go further. Not everyone could be like Wang Tianzong. The next few years were critical for Saint. If his injuries were not healed, it would be difficult for him to completely stabilize his realm and rush into the peak of the invincible realm. It's not a big problem, Saint said slowly. There is still time, and my injuries are almost healed. At the very least at this stage, my strength is enough. As for the future, Emperor Dong's palace doesn't care about my strength, but yours. If you are invincible in the world, it doesn't matter if I stop here. Li Tianlan frowned and didn't say much. It seemed that since he entered the desert prison, the expectations of the people around him were too high, so high that even they themselves were a little negative. But such feelings Li Tianlan had no solution at the moment. This was a problem of mentality, which could not be solved in a few words. And for some reason, Li Tianlan always felt that there was some special reason for this kind of negativity. Especially military counselor and Saint. I heard that something happened in Beihai? Saint was silent for a while and asked slowly. This was not a rumor anymore. The general change was around the corner. The president and the prime minister went to the desert prison in person. Wang Shengxiao deliberately collided with them. Everyone knew that something would happen in Beihai in the near future, but few people knew what would happen for the time being. Beihai, it's going to be chaotic. Li Tianlan said softly. What about the specifics? Saint was a little curious. The Vatican East Island, the Jiang family of South America. Li Tianlan gave a sarcastic smile. It's probably these people. One of the key points should have something to do with Wang Qinglei, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that if these people invade the Wang family of Beihai, it will definitely be a big trouble for Wang Shengxiao now. The Vatican East Island, the Jiang family of South America. Saint narrowed his eyes. More than one invincible realm expert. So they need me, Li Tianlan said calmly. Saint glanced at him and nodded. I'll go there then. Although his realm was not stable, he could already fight with others. At this time, he naturally could not flinch. No need. Li Tianlan shook his head. You stay in the hospital to take care of the wounded. I don't want the hospital to be attacked a second time. What about Beihai? Saint hesitated for a moment. Leave it to me, Li Tianlan said calmly and looked at his watch. He looked at his watch and said, in a few hours, Wang Shengxiao will probably arrive in Yuzhou. Contact military counselor and sort out some information that Wang Shengxiao needs and give it to him. Then leave the hospital for a while and go to Beihai. Come back at night. To Beihai? Saint frowned. I'll go? He was a new invincible realm expert in Zhongzhou state. His every move was watched by everyone. Now he contacted Wang Shengxiao with great fanfare, and even went to Beihai with him. When the news came out, one could imagine the shock. Yes, to Beihai. Li Tianlan's voice was resolute, and his pupils were extremely hot. Help me bring back coldness of 9 states. He paused and continued, the sooner the better. I can't wait. Chapter 803. Saint raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at Li Tianlan seriously. He nodded slowly and said, I can leave at any time. Since he became the deputy palace lord of Emperor Dong's palace, or even since he knew Li Tianlan, it was the first time he had seen such eagerness and expectation in Li Tianlan. Take back the coldness of the 9 states. The murderous weapon that had been broken by Xianyuan Feng in Eastern Europe. The divine weapon that could control the sword intent of the Chosen One. For the time being, Saint could not imagine how amazing the changes would be after Li Tianlan obtained the coldness of 9 states. But he understood the cause and effect between Xianyuan Feng and the coldness of 9 states. Now it seemed that Li Tianlan had also realized something. Wang Shengxiao is willing to use the coldness of 9 states as a bargaining chip. Saint smiled and didn't know what to say. This seemed to be a huge price to pay. But it wasn't too big. But no matter what, Wang Shengxiao's choice this time was decisive enough, even decisive. The predecessor of coldness of 9 states was the human emperor. The first murderous weapon that had shaken the dark world for hundreds of years. In order to have a divine weapon that could fully unleash his sword intent, Wang Tianzong decisively cast the human emperor into the coldness of the 9 states. There was actually no difference. After all, the material was the same. The only thing that changed was the shape. The energy requirements of the coldness of the 9 states would not change. In this state, the coldness of the 9 states could bear Wang Tianzong's sword energy, and could also be used as a murderous weapon. There might be some trade-offs, but this was obviously not something that Saint could know. Therefore, when the human emperor became the coldness of the 9 states, it might be slightly different from the human emperor, but in essence, it was still a murderous weapon and something that Xian Yuanfeng needed. For the Wang family of Beihai, the role of the human emperor was not significant in the following period. During the final battle of Heaven Capital, human emperor had already opened fire on the border of Zhongzhou state. The transformation from Renhuang to coldness of 9 states had exhausted the energy accumulated over the past 3 years. Moreover, after coldness of 9 states was cut off by Xian Yuanfeng, it was not easy to repair it. If he kept coldness of 9 states, it could be expected that within 10 years, this divine weapon would not be of much use. Now the Wang family of Beihai was betting on the next few years. They wanted to get through this crisis. When Wang Tianzong recovered from his injury, it would be a new world. Therefore, Wang Shengxiao handed over the coldness of 9 states, which was temporarily useless to North Sea, without any hesitation. Li Tianlan replied with a and did not express any opinion. He just subconsciously adjusted his sitting posture. His heart was obviously not calm, which was an extremely rare emotion for him. He had the kind of anticipation and restlessness that didn't want to wait for even a second longer. When he was a child, he stood in the camp of the Li family and looked up at the star flag, and thought about the future of the Li family. Soon after he came to Huading at the beginning of the year, he came out of the Sky Academy, and was pushed onto the sofa by Qin Weibai in that villa. Then it was now. Coldness of the 9 states. Human emperor. It belonged to the Wang family of Beihai, but Xian Yuanfeng was his. He had enough power to decide Xian Yuanfeng's direction. Li Tianlan subconsciously raised his hand and clenched it. The saints were slightly stunned when they saw this posture. This posture didn't seem like he was holding a sword. In a trance, it felt like he was holding the entire world in his hands. Li Tianlan looked at Saint calmly and said, "Don't let anything happen." Saint's heart trembled and he nodded solemnly. "Don't worry." Li Tianlan hung up the video call and looked in the direction of Beihai, waiting for the broken coldness of 9 states. The Xianyuan sword appeared beside him and slowly rotated around him. Li Tianlan stared deeply at the sword, and his eyes sparkled. This kind of light was just like the first time Li Huaqing saw him. With light footsteps, Qin Weibai walked into the restaurant with a bowl of soup. Her soft casual clothes made her look indescribably lazy, and her ruddy face was more charming and enchanting than before. Wang Shengxiao left. Qin Weibai placed the soup in front of Li Tianlan and asked curiously. Li Tianlan nodded silently and said, "What about Xiao Mahai?" "I happened to meet him, so I ordered lunch and asked him to go to the kitchen to prepare." Qin Weibai leaned against Li Tianlan and said lazily, "How was Beihai's offer?" "Very good," Li Tianlan said bluntly. "It was done in one step, better than expected." "What's better?" Qin Weibai glanced at Li Tianlan curiously. "Coldness of 9 states," Li Tianlan said quietly. "This is the condition I added," and Wang Shengxiao agreed. Qin Weibai's eyes lit up, and she sat up straight. "So can Xian Yuanfeng evolve again?" "It still needs some research, but the human emperor is relatively special among the murderous weapons. If all murderous weapons come from a piece of metal, the human emperor is closer to the core of that piece of metal, like a heart, and has strong energy." Li Tianlan glanced at Qin Weibai. He said softly, "When he fought with Xian Yuanfeng in the desert, he discovered Xian Yuanfeng's secret. When he came back, he asked Qin Weibai about it in detail, but Qin Weibai said that she did not know what was going on. Li Tianlan did not meditate for the past 2 nights, nor did he study Xian Yuanfeng. He was busy bullying Qin Weibai, so how could he have time to care about this? But what was certain was that Xian Yuanfeng did need the energy of the murderous weapon in any case. "Is there enough time?" Qin Weibai thought for a while and asked softly. "It should be about time." Li Tianlan thought for a while and said, Zhongzhou State still needs some time to prepare. As for Beihai, we can slow down the information we provide him. It's not a big problem. Qin Weibai answered obediently and suddenly asked, what will change this time? Li Tianlan paused and shook his head. It should make it more complete, right? What about for you? Qin Weibai looked at Li Tianlan with quiet eyes. What about for Beihai? For me it's not very useful, but for Beihai it's critical. He looked out the window at the endless yellow sand, thinking about when the situation would break out. After a long silence he said softly, I'm going to raise the sword. Then I'll stay here with you. Qin Weibai smiled sweetly. He couldn't accompany her more, so she would stay with him. Li Tianlan smiled and gently touched Qin Weibai's hair. Don't mess it up. Qin Weibai scratched the back of Li Tianlan's hand and took care of her casually tied black hair. Li Tianlan snapped his fingers. In the subtle light, a subtle light flickered and slowly extended. Finally, it turned into a crystal-clear rose that looked beautiful and gorgeous. This is... Qin Weibai opened her eyes wide and looked at Li Tianlan. For a moment, she even forgot to breathe. She looked at Li Tianlan, and then at the rose. The look in her eyes became more and more complicated. The footsteps of fate seemed to come with an irresistible force. Many years ago, or many years later, the man named Dongqing Huangtu was brought over by this force. And now, Li Tianlan finally came to this step. The crystal rose sparkled in Li Tianlan's hand. All the details became more and more perfect, vivid, like the most exquisite work of art, priceless. Li Tianlan gently inserted the rose into Qin Weibai's hair, nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, it's beautiful. Chapter 804. Qin Weibai gently touched the rose on her head. Her eyes were pure and soft. This is the first time you've sent me flowers. She smiled gently. The delicate, illusory rose exuded real warmth in her hand. Qin Weibai looked very happy. I like it very much. If there is a chance in the future, I will give you all the flowers in the world. Li Tianlan's voice was soft, and he made an almost absurd promise. But his eyes were serious and persistent. Qin Weibai was in a trance for a moment. She remembered a story from many years ago. The man who had been almost invincible once promised so. Divine weapons should be given to heroes, and flowers should be matched with beauties. He said he would give her all the roses in the world at their wedding. That year, the warrant signed by His Majesty dynasty spread throughout the dark world, and all the countries in the world that produced roses. That year, roses became a luxury all over the world. That year, there was a rain of flowers. From Zhongzhou State to Italy, across the 2 continents of Europe and Asia, across mountains and seas, millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, countless rose petals were scattered in the sky for tens of thousands of miles, covering the earth and the sea, from Zhongzhou State all the way to the Holy Land. It was an indescribable rain of flowers. It was romantic, but with an absolute scorching madness and love. But ironically, the groom who did all this did not find his bride at the end. The colorful rain of flowers fell on the earth and the sea, and finally dissipated in the earth and the deep sea. Qin Weibai lowered her head and whispered, this time, I only need 1 flower. That's enough. Not enough. Li Tianlan shook his head. Qin Weibai pulled the chair closer to Li Tianlan and finally leaned into his arms. The rose was quiet in her hair. It was so exquisite that it was almost unreal, but it really existed, so real that it was a little unreal. Li Tianlan put his arm around her shoulder and touched the rose with the other hand. In a slight sound, a string of equally beautiful and incredible crystals appeared where the petals were connected. The crystals fell on the rose and swayed gently with Qin Weibai's breath, looking much more vivid. It's beautiful, Li Tianlan whispered. Qin Weibai looked up at Li Tianlan and reached out to touch his face. Her eyes were blurred, and she giggled. Do you want me to reward you again? Li Tianlan was a little excited, but that was it. Agitated, he shook his head and teased. I've been squeezed dry by you. Bad people. Qin Weibai gently grabbed Li Tianlan's ear and whispered, it's you who bullied me. Li Tianlan grabbed her little hand and kissed it. He whispered, old Xiao is here. Qin Weibai's eyes became clear for a moment, and she sat up straight. Xiao Mahai walked over with a box of food, his face full of smiles. Li Tianlan scooped a bowl of soup for himself, and accompanied Qin Weibai to drink unhurriedly. Xiao Qing is not bad, he suddenly said. Follow Xiao Bai from now on. She needs someone to take care of her while she's here. Xiao Mahai was stunned and nodded subconsciously. Then he said hesitantly, Your Highness, you my sister. Put away your messy thoughts and tell her to go back. She's already married. What's the point of sending me to my side? Li Tianlan shook his head. I don't need anyone to take care of me. I'm going to be quiet for a while. Find me a dormitory later. You don't have to deliberately arrange anything. You'll be in charge of my meals from now on. Okay. Xiao Mohai nodded subconsciously. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. Li Tianlan didn't explain anything. His time in the desert prison had entered a countdown. At the latest, 1 year, at the shortest, he would leave here in a few months. There was not much time left for him. He needed to adjust his state, so that he could truly stand in his current peak state. Whether it was for Emperor Dong's palace or for the chaos that the Wang family of Beihai would face next, he needed to make a choice and face everything with the strongest posture. So he had to raise his sword. The Lin clan was hidden from the world. And the current patriarch of the Lin clan was now sitting beside him obediently. After leaving the desert prison, Li Tianlan had to let everyone know that in the dark world, whether it was clear sky or shadow, he was the real #1 person in the dark world. Xiao Mahai turned and left the restaurant. Qin Weibai sat beside him and ate rice. She whispered, Do you feel the pressure? What pressure? Li Tianlan was a little confused. The Vatican, the Jiang family of South America, East Island. Qin Weibai said softly. If you were in the state you were in a year ago, even with Xianyuan Feng, your strength would be slightly worse than Morade's. You should be on par with Tianhai Wuji and slightly better than Yagyu Kurumi. Of course, if you go all out, the result is hard to say. As for now, she paused and whispered, Beihai's current situation is not very optimistic. If you want to carry it by yourself, you will be under a lot of pressure. It's okay. Li Tianlan smiled. After all, Qin Weibai didn't understand martial arts. These analyses came from others, so it was inevitable that they were not accurate enough. Even if they were accurate, it was him and Xianyuan Feng a year ago, not now. It's okay. Don't worry, he said softly. Qin Weibai hesitated and whispered, It's not that we can't find help. Who? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. He knew some invincible realm experts who were willing to help him. But now there was basically no one who could help. Tribulation was unconscious, and Situt Songyue had not recovered from her serious injury. After all, Saint represented Mount Shu. He could become the deputy palace master of Emperor Dong's palace, but it was not appropriate for him to participate in the affairs of Beihai. Only he could come forward. Northern Europe, the Dark Knights. Qin Weibai whispered, Flaming fire is there and the palace master hasn't. She hesitated and continued. Before the palace master died, Flaming fire played the role of the master of Samsara Palace unless it was necessary. Her strength is not bad. Even if she can't compare with Morade, at least she is enough to hold Yagyu Kurumi, and your pressure will be much less. Flaming fire. Li Tianlan murmured to himself and whispered, How are she and Alpha? Alpha has woken up, but it's hard for him to recover from his serious injury in a short time. Flaming fire's injury is basically healed, but she rarely contacts us. The palace master died. She is angry with you, me, and many people. But if you are in trouble, she will definitely help. Qin Weibai whispered. Li Tianlan was silent for a while and finally shook his head. No, I can solve it. Don't be careless. Qin Weibai stared at Li Tianlan's face. If there were no accidents, the next year or two would be the most critical period for Li Tianlan. She didn't want any accidents to happen to him. In the current dark world, there are very few people who are qualified to be your enemy, but each of them is not easy to deal with. You're wrong. Li Tianlan looked at her quietly. Everyone who thinks so is wrong. His tone was calm, but there was extreme confidence between the lines. That was not arrogance. It was pure confidence. There are no enemies under my sword. Li Tianlan whispered, only non-entities. Chapter 805. After lunch, Xiao Mahai had already prepared a new dormitory for Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan was very satisfied with it. He ordered that the prison would not entertain outsiders in the near future. He simply shook Qin Weibai's hand, and then began his sword training career that might last for a few months or even a year. Both Li Tianlan and Qin Weibai had absolute confidence in the sword that they had nurtured for a long time, and the firmest will. Qin Weibai returned to Li Tianlan's original dormitory. The air in the dormitory still lingered with the lingering scent of romance. She opened the window, sat in front of the computer, thought for a moment, and entered a website. Layers of passwords completely isolated all the possibility of being tracked and monitored. A complicated and exquisite webpage appeared in front of Qin Weibai. Qin Weibai pursed her lips, and her dreamy perfect face was calm and rational. She quickly issued a series of orders. On the webpage, windows popped up one after another and quickly closed. After doing all this, Qin Weibai opened the communication subsystem of the website and sent a few invitations with her slender fingers. Saint's figure appeared on the communication screen first. The screen began to separate. It separated into 3 small screens. Saint was in the middle. Qin Weibai glanced at him and nodded. The next second, the screen on the left lit up, and military counselor greeted them with an easygoing smile. "I thought you were at the airport now." Saint glanced at military counselor and raised his eyebrows. "I did. It's not a big deal. Why would I go there? If there is something, it can't be said in an occasion like the airport." Military counselor shook his head carelessly and suddenly laughed. "Are you bored? One is in the hospital, and the other is in the prison. I found a good game recently, and I recommend it to you." Saint looked at his careless state and shook his head. Hua Zhenyang, one of the 9 counselors of Zhongzhou State, and the leader of the academics, the vice minister of the cabinet, made a high-profile inspection of Huading, and before his departure, he hoped to have a more in-depth discussion with military counselor. Everyone could see that military counselor was Hua Zhenyang's key goal this time. However, when it came to military counselor, it became not a big deal, even less important than his game. "It's not necessary," Qin Weibai said blandly. "Even if you want to express your attitude, you don't have to deliberately snub him. After all, he is a director of Zhongzhou State. What's the benefit of offending him? Of course I would have dealt with him in the past, but now I'm really too lazy to do anything. So what if I offend him? Wait for me to back off. If I do, I'll be like a wild crane, and I can't be bothered to serve these so-called giants." The military advisor shook his head. Saint wanted to say something but stopped. In the end, he did not say anything. Qin Weibai stopped talking. The 3rd small screen on the screen was temporarily unconnected, and the screen was pitch black. "How's Tianlan's negotiation with them?" Military counselor asked. "We've temporarily stabilized the council." Qin Weibai looked at the screen that was still dark and said slowly, "Tianlan has decided to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. The Wang family of Beihai has agreed to all the conditions we expected, and used the broken coldness of 9 states as a bargaining chip. Tianlan has begun to raise the sword." "What changes will there be?" Military counselor's eyes lit up. Without a doubt, he was asking about the changes that the coldness of 9 states had made to Xianyuan Feng. Qin Weibai did not say anything. She glanced at Saint. She really did not understand martial arts. Although Li Tianlan's current realm was low, his sword intent had touched the end of martial arts. Even if she understood martial arts, she could not say what the so-called changes would be. Only Saint could understand a little. It was not because he was an invincible realm expert. It was because he was Saint. The changes are not that big. Saint thought for a moment and analyzed all kinds of possibilities. But it should be crucial to Beihai. It depends on how well the palace master raises the sword. It's nothing more than the difference between the power of one sword and the power of one person. Qin Weibai subconsciously touched the rose on her head. She touched the petals and could feel that Li Tianlan was watching the conversation here through the rose. Qin Weibai smiled and felt a little relieved. "What is this?" Military counselor looked at the rose and was a little curious. "Where did you buy it? Give me one too, but I want lilies." I want some lilies. This is the palace master's eyes. Saint said with a faint smile. Even if he is not here, he can see your every move now. So, if you talk about retiring or something, be careful that he will really beat you up when he sees you. Saint's face stiffened for a moment. He gave a hollow laugh and said hello. Hello, Your Highness. The incredibly delicate rose moved, and the crystal on its stem shook slightly, becoming more and more vivid. Click! A faint noise suddenly rang out. There was an intermittent sound from the third small screen. The screen was still dark, but it showed that it was connected. A somewhat hoarse voice sounded. It seemed to deliberately hide its voice. What's the matter? Saint and military counselor were quiet for a moment. Qin Weibai's eyes flickered, and she asked, how is the situation in Beihai? In the dark screen, the voice was silent for a moment, and then he laughed in a low voice. The undercurrent is turbulent. I have confirmed the whereabouts of more than 2,000 people, all of whom are elites. The Jiang family of South America, Knights Templars, Jifeng Sword Training School, and Wuji Palace all have elites lurking. It can be said that these families have put in a lot of effort. According to our analysis, in a few months, they can even stuff tens of thousands of people in Beihai, maybe even more. Tens of thousands of elites are at least in the ice-condensing realm. How large of a Beihai corps can they be? He paused and tooted. For Beihai province, this is definitely a disaster, and it can even be said to be the only disaster in their history. More than 10,000 people, military counselor frowned. It's not easy to hide so many people. No matter how Wang Xiaoyao manages, it can't be foolproof. These people can't lurk for long, and they will definitely be exposed. What does that matter? In the dark screen, the man laughed in a low voice. Even if they are exposed, the Wang family of Beihai can't deal with so many people in a short time. At that time, the whole Beihai will be covered with blood, and the trust of Beihai people in the Beihai government and Mount Dibing will drop to the lowest point. The 7 sword-holding families will suffer heavy losses, or even be completely wiped out. These things only need an outbreak, not a tug-of-war. It's hard for Beihai to react. Once it happens, Zhongzhou state can forcefully intervene in everything in Beihai. There's nothing more perfect than this. Saint and military counselor were silent. Qin Weibai was also silent. After a long time, Qin Weibai breathed a sigh of relief and said calmly, don't think Beihai is too simple. Yes. The hoarse voice was non-committal. What's the attitude of the Samsara Palace? Hua Xingyang's inspection of Huating should be for military counselor, right? They attach great importance to you. Except for 3 visits to the thatched cottage. Our attitude is Tianlan's attitude. Qin Weibai's voice was cold. Your young master is ready to fully cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. After a short silence, the voice murmured, fully cooperate? Yes. Qin Weibai nodded. Fully cooperate. Tricky. In the dark, he said in a deep voice. So Tianlan needs time. Today, I need you to hand over to military counselor. Whether it's intelligence or resources, we can share them. In any case, we must temporarily stop the actions of the major forces. Chapter 806. Saint had always been a very generous person. He would never hide anything that was destined to be unconcealable. Therefore, after confirming the relationship between Emperor Dong's palace and the Wang family of Beihai, Saint had directly contacted Wang Shengxiao an hour before his helicopter arrived in Yuzhou. Wang Shengxiao was even more generous. The most convenient thing about helicopters was that they didn't have to land at the airport. As the rotors whistled, the helicopter landed directly on the hospital's helipad. Wang Shengxiao walked out of the cabin and looked at Saint with a smile. Saint nodded. Both sides seemed satisfied with each other's attitude. Your Highness, if there's nothing else, shall we depart now? Wang Shengxiao asked directly, without any nonsense or courtesy. If they set off now, they could catch up with dinner when they arrived at Mount Dibing. Sure. After saying that, Saint walked directly into the helicopter. The helicopter started to take off. Under the gaze of numerous people, it whizzed across the sky of Yuzhou province. They came and went in a hurry. This was the first time Wang Shengxiao had come to Yuzhou since he became the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. It took less than 5 minutes. But he took away the only new invincible realm expert in Zhongzhou state. This news swept over the entire Yuzhou city like a hurricane. Before the helicopter left Yuzhou province, some big figures in high places had already known this news. Everyone's attention was not on Saint. Saint boarded the plane of the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai and headed for Beihai province. Countless people were guessing the intentions of the young prodigy, who was temporarily imprisoned in the desert prison. The president, the prime minister, and the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai went to the desert prison at the same time, but no one knew the specific results for the time being. The actions of the saints were like a signal that made many people start to think about various possibilities. Chen Fangqing once again appeared in the Golden Autumn Pavilion of the Hidden Dragon Sea, which was known as the office of the president. Li Huaqing pushed away a meeting that had already been arranged and personally received Chen Fangqing. The spacious office was filled with the fragrance of tea. The two giants who stood at the peak of Zhongzhou state sat face to face. The atmosphere was silent and depressing, gloomy and a little scary. What does that mean? Chen Fangqing remained silent for a long time before asking softly, probing. Li Huaqing's voice was calm, but even the usually calm expression in his eyes now had a hint of fear. There was a dark haze. Probe. Chen Fangqing raised an eyebrow. Non-committal. I don't think he can make up his mind in such a short time. What can North Sea give him? Unless Wang Shengxiao is willing to give him the entire Beihai. Li Huaqing said lightly. Chen Fangqing leaned back and rubbed his temples. He let out a long sigh, not hiding his exhaustion at all. Li Tianlan and Wang Shengxiao. Mount Dibing, East Imperial Palace. Two people and two forces really took up too much of his energy. This was really related to the future pattern of Zhongzhou state. His expectations were so great that he was even unwilling to bear any bad risks. To be honest, Chen Fangqing's mentality was out of balance. He knew this, but he couldn't control his irritation. Comrade Jinyang inspected Huading, but the one in Huading didn't go to the airport. Does this mean that he's not optimistic about our operation? It can even be said that some international powers are not optimistic about our operation. Chen Fangqing said softly. Maybe he's just not willing to take too many risks. In the field he's best at, the Wang family of Beihai is no weaker than him, or even stronger. And we can never give too many benefits to people like him, let alone some core things. So it's understandable that he's not willing to get involved. Li Huaqing's voice was flat. Then why did Saint leave with Wang Shengxiao? Chen Fangqing's eyes were gloomy. We just came back. If Wang Shengxiao didn't talk to Li Tianlan, how could Saint be so blatant? Probe. Does he really think that Zhongzhou state can't punish him now? Li Huaqing glanced at him silently and said with a poker face, what are you going to do? The other party has made a move. No matter what his purpose is, we can't do nothing. Chen Fangqing said flatly, some plans for Tiannan can be implemented. They want to help, but we must reduce it appropriately to show Li Tianlan our determination and attitude. Suspend the supply of some weapons and armaments that have been finalized recently. Li Huaqing frowned. At this time, if we act too aggressively, we can only let him get closer to Beihai, then continue to reduce the aid. Chen Fangqing was expressionless. At the same time, speed up the plan for Beihai. He hasn't broken through to the invincible realm, and his combat capability is limited. The strength of Emperor Dong's palace is also limited. Besides, he has promised us that he will stay in prison during the chaos in Beihai. In this case, let the chaos in Beihai break out earlier. Are you worried that his promise to us is to buy time for him to break through to the invincible realm? Li Huaqing raised his eyebrows. I'm not worried about that. Chen Fangqing's tone was cold. On the contrary, I'm looking forward to it. I will continue to reduce the aid to Xianyuan City, and he will stay in prison. This is his promise. If he dares to break it, it means that he officially refuses our proposal. Kunlun City can't satisfy his appetite. What about the Heavenly Sun? Chen Fangqing said in a low voice. He's ambitious and deserves to be killed. Li Huaqing's body shook slightly. Deserve to be killed? He narrowed his eyes tightly and pondered. Now Emperor Dong's palace is very dangerous. He just doesn't know it. Li Tianlan has potential, But it doesn't mean that Emperor Dong's palace has the strength of the Wang family of Beihai. With the strength of Zhongzhou state, if they really want to attack Emperor Dong's palace, even with Li Tianlan, how long can they hold on? Half a day or a day? If Prime Minister Li Huaqing suddenly spoke and interrupted Chen Fangqing. Chen Fangqing looked up at him. You're too aggressive, Li Huaqing said in a light tone. Chen Fangqing was stunned. After a long while he took a deep breath and stopped talking. We all need to calm down, Li Huaqing said. He didn't doubt Chen Fangqing's words. Li Tianlan had great potential. Emperor Dong's palace also had great potential. But if Zhongzhou state really wanted to destroy Emperor Dong's palace, it didn't even need half a day or a day. An hour was enough. The dense missiles could completely cover every corner of Tiannan. In a few seconds, Tiannan could be turned into purgatory and scorched earth. Under that level of artillery fire, no matter how strongly Tianlan was, he couldn't survive. It was not a question of whether he could do it or not. It was a question of whether he could do it or not. Zhongzhou state was the most powerful country in the world. But Zhongzhou state didn't belong to the two of them. If the two of them really joined forces, don't forget that the army headquarters was still in the hands of Dongqing Wudi. Chen Fangqing was silent for a while and nodded. You're right. It's not suitable to talk about this topic today. Li Huaqing pushed the teacup forward and said slowly, let's talk about something else. Something else? Chen Fangqing looked at him, a little confused. Let's not talk about Beihai or Emperor Dong's palace. Li Huaqing's eyes were a little complicated. Let's talk about Zhongzhou state. Chapter 807. Li Huaqing wanted to talk about Zhongzhou state with Chen Fangqing. There was no doubt that even in the whole world, the two of them were the most qualified to talk about Zhongzhou state. The afternoon was quiet and heavy. The sunlight outside the window shone in through the window, seeming to soak the waves on the hidden dragon sea. The warm light shone on Li Huaqing's face. His eyes were a little complicated. Chen Fangqing's heart sank slightly. He had never seen Li Huaqing's eyes like this. There were all kinds of complicated emotions in those unfathomable abyss-like eyes. There was anger, regret, disappointment and coldness. And hesitation. Hesitation. This was the emotion that Chen Fangqing didn't want to see the most. Chen Fangqing's palm shook. The delicate white porcelain teacup collided with the lid, making a harsh sound. His expression gradually became determined, like a rock. How can we not talk about Beihai when talking about Zhongzhou state? Chen Fangqing looked at Li Huaqing's eyes and said slowly. Li Huaqing glanced at him, nodded, and said with a smile, what do you think of the Wang family of Beihai? Meritorious, Chen Fangqing said calmly. But no mistakes are the biggest mistakes. Li Huaqing was silent. No one could deny that. The Wang family of Beihai's contribution to Zhongzhou state was obvious to all. For hundreds of years, the rise of Zhongzhou state at every critical moment almost had the shadow of the Wang family of Beihai. In the beginning, they introduced technology from the West. They attacked Star State. They broke the technical blockade with a relatively neutral identity. They strengthened the diplomatic ties between Zhongzhou state and some Western countries. They contributed their own technology. They supported the construction of Zhongzhou state. For hundreds of years, the Wang family of Beihai shone the most dazzling light in the history of Zhongzhou state. Their contributions didn't need to be detailed, because they couldn't say it. Meritorious. But no mistakes were the biggest mistakes. With the help of the Wang family of Beihai, Zhongzhou state ascended to the position of the world's top power. But as a part of Zhongzhou state, what did Beihai ask of Zhongzhou state? Nothing. There was nothing. The Wang family of Beihai almost never made any request to Zhongzhou state. This behemoth, which had a president and a prime minister and still controlled the southeast group, had always been detached from Zhongzhou state, but it was involved in some top-secret plans of Zhongzhou state. Beihai had no requirements for Zhongzhou state, nor did it rely on Zhongzhou state. This meant that they had a lot of choices. In this state, the Wang family of Beihai was like a shadow floating over Zhongzhou state. There was sunshine and glory. But in any case, it could not hide the fact that the Wang family of Beihai was too detached, too domineering, too strong and too free. Looking down from above, This was Beihai's attitude toward Zhongzhou state for hundreds of years. To put it simply, such a North Sea province could not be controlled. No one in power could control the North Sea province. This feeling of being out of control would make anyone in power restless. No one could imagine how much influence Beihai had on Zhongzhou state. The rise of Zhongzhou state was the growth of Beihai. Almost every group and every person in power in Zhongzhou state had seen a similar model. Or rather, they were different models in different eras. The model simulated the impact on Zhongzhou state if the Wang family of Beihai suddenly collapsed or parted ways with Zhongzhou state. Every model had a different time, so the consequences were different as well. The model contained a large amount of social data. It was densely packed, but the most eye-catching thing was that one line in the model. That was the line that represented the influence of the Wang family of Beihai on Zhongzhou state. The line was green at the beginning, but as time went on, it continued to rise, turning into dark green, light gray, light purple, reddish, and scarlet. 20 years ago, that line had already crossed the highest warning line, turning into a sinister scarlet red that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The model was highly credible. A large number of sociologists, economists, psychologists, financial professors, politicians, and a large number of analysts were assembled. Every time the model was built, it was almost a super large team of thousands of people that analyzed and built it carefully. There was more and more data in the model. The latest model had millions of data. Almost no one knew what these data meant. To put it bluntly, if the Wang family of Beihai suddenly collapsed, or if the Wang family of Beihai broke with Zhongzhou state, the overall economy of Zhongzhou state would collapse at an unimaginable speed. Within a week, more than 400 industries in Zhongzhou state would suffer the first wave of impact. Within a month, the impact would spread to the whole country, and countless industries would be violently shaken. Within half a year, numerous group companies would be forced to go bankrupt. Optimistically, tens of millions of people would lose their jobs, and the social order would be on the verge of collapse. Within a year, the huge social problem would directly become an economic loss that would be unbearable for Zhongzhou state. The national power would decline seriously, and the currency would depreciate or appreciate crazily. In the southeast region, Huating, Wuyue, Jiangzhou, Jianghuai, Jiangnan, Minnan and other provinces would almost be completely out of control. The political order of Zhongzhou state would also become chaotic. 2 years later, after the first wave of chaos of the Wang family of Beihai passed, Zhongzhou state would face a more severe situation. It was a disaster. It was not a natural disaster. It was a real disaster. This was the current Wang family of Beihai. They had contributed too much, too much, too much. Brilliant, glorious, gorgeous. It was beneficial to Zhongzhou state. But it had become a cancer of Zhongzhou state. Under the current system of Zhongzhou state, such a transcendent force should not have appeared. But in fact, it did exist. The biggest reason was that Beihai was too free. It had no desire for Zhongzhou state, but it showed its influence all the time. In this state, Beihai was very much like Rothschild in Europe at its peak hundreds of years ago, or the Vatican in a more distant time. In fact, there had been a cognition in the dark world hundreds of years ago. Such a cognition was not that the Wang family of Beihai was the strongest force in the dark world. It was about the cognition of the country. 6 major powers in the world. Zhongzhou state, Star state, Germany, Snow country, England. The 6th. Mount Dibing. Not Beihai province, not the Wang family of Beihai. It was Mount Dibing. Such a cognition was not only because of the strength of Mount Dibing. It was also because of the almost exaggerated influence of Mount Dibing. In such a case, every person in power would ask himself, was Zhongzhou state the Zhongzhou state of the Zhongzhou state people, or the Zhongzhou state of the Beihai people? No one could tolerate such a thing. The clearest fact was that the countless branches of the Wang family of Beihai had more than one president in hundreds of years. However, almost every president who came from North Sea ended up on bad terms with the patriarch's faction. What did this mean? Such a superpower should not exist from the perspective of politics, the country, and the situation. They didn't do anything before because there was no chance. There would be twists and turns inside Beihai. There would be changes and turbulence. But they had the Li family with them at that time. The Li family would help them with all the current waves appropriately. They were close to Beihai, but they always maintained a delicate balance. Zhongzhou state couldn't do anything. The real opportunity began more than 20 years ago. The Li family collapsed, and no one would escort Beihai when it was in the most dangerous time. This was the best opportunity. Today, more than 20 years later, the opportunity was fully ripe. The new Li family and Beihai had great grievances. The Lin clan, which was inextricably linked with Beihai, also had cracks with them. Rothschild couldn't take care of himself. The Sword Emperor was missing. Mount Dibing, which had internal and external troubles, became a real isolated island. This was the best opportunity, and it could even be said to be the only opportunity in the long future. Chen Fangqing didn't care about any consequences. He had to take down Mount Dibing. Only Beihai province, which was completely controlled by Zhongzhou state, would not be a cancer. No one could stop him. Li Tianlong couldn't. Li Huaqing couldn't either. They stood together. Li Huaqing couldn't hesitate at all. The Wang family of Beihai can't be left alive. Chen Fangqing said slowly. His voice was low, and he spoke word by word. Li Huaqing furrowed his brows. Today, Chen Fangqing's killing intent was too heavy. It was as if he was mentally prepared for the worst and intended to be tough to the end. This kind of attitude had completely deviated from their original intentions. He could understand the problem in the other party's mentality, but he couldn't accept it. Prime Minister, as you said, Beihai has contributed to Zhongzhou state. At least now, it seems that their influence is positive, and they haven't caused irreparable disaster to Zhongzhou state. Therefore, we should slow down the Wang family of Beihai. Any drastic action may cause unimaginable serious consequences. Li Huaqing said softly. This may be a matter that will involve years or even decades of planning. As for the plan that would take years or even decades, it was still the same. We have to calm down and plan slowly. We shouldn't make any drastic moves. Otherwise, this matter will deteriorate. Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes and said blankly, I don't have time, but you do. We're different. He really didn't have time. Next year would be the end of his term. He hoped that this matter could have a clear outline before this time next year, and everyone would remember his achievements. He wanted to leave a clear situation for Zhongzhou state, not a mess. Li Huaqing still had 5 years. But Chen Fangqing really didn't have time. So he persuaded Wang Qinglei. So there was the coming chaos of the Wang family of Beihai. Li Huaqing knew this, but he didn't agree or oppose it. Wang Qinglei persuaded several superpowers. What could they do by sneaking into Beihai? Chaos. They only brought chaos, blood, lives, hatred, and wailing to Beihai. And the opportunity of Zhongzhou state. When several superpowers, many thunder-shocking scriptures, and several invincible realm experts brought unimaginable losses to Beihai, the support of the people of Beihai for Mount Dibing would naturally decline, and their cohesion would become loose. Zhongzhou state would have the best reason to intervene in Beihai to maintain stability. But such a means was too drastic. Li Huaqing didn't deny that it was effective, but it was not what he liked. But after all, it was not a means of Zhongzhou state to Beihai. It could only be said that the decisive battle between Wang Qinglei and Mount Dibing was fierce, but at least on the surface, it had nothing to do with Zhongzhou state. So Li Huaqing let the situation develop to this point. But as time went by, Li Huaqing clearly noticed the change of Chen Fangqing's thinking. The Beihai Corps openly expanded. Wang Shengxiao did not hesitate to fight. Xianyuan City developed rapidly. Li Tianlong obeyed in public but opposed in private. More and more things beyond his control made Chen Fangqing's thinking gradually go to extremes. Li Huaqing was still thinking about how to control the Wang family of Beihai. But now Chen Fangqing's mind was full of destruction. Destroy the Wang family of Beihai. Destroy Emperor Dong's palace. I understand your urgency. Li Huaqing said softly. But not only Beihai, but also Zhongzhou state can't afford too much risk. I'm the president of Zhongzhou state. Beihai is above me. I don't care about the situation of Beihai, but I have to be responsible for the whole Zhongzhou state. What do you mean? Chen Fangqing raised his head expressionlessly and looked at Li Huaqing. Li Huaqing stood up, walked to the window, and turned his back to Chen Fangqing. I don't think what we're doing now is wrong, But any approach and any plan must be in line with the general trend. The chaos that Beihai is about to face will be the last test of Zhongzhou state. If things really can't be done, compromise may be a better way. You want to compromise? Chen Fangqing abruptly stood up. Beihai is not an enemy, Li Huaqing quietly said. The purpose of a battle is not to kill or be killed. When necessary, both sides need a path of retreat. A Pyrrhic victory is no victory. When the odds of victory are not high, what's the point of being tough? Don't you know how many years Zhongzhou state has prepared for this plan? It's easy to say to give up. In the current situation, how can Zhongzhou state give up? This is a rare opportunity. If we let Beihai take a breather, Beihai's influence on Zhongzhou state will be more obvious in the future. Zhongzhou state is our Zhongzhou state, not the Wang family's Zhongzhou state. Do you understand? Chen Fangqing growled, and his face turned red. What you said makes sense, but it's not all right. Li Huaqing said flatly, Zhongzhou state now has Emperor Dong's palace. In the worst case, it's not unacceptable to let Emperor Dong's palace and Beihai form a new balance. You're thinking about defeat before the battle. The president is really farsighted. Chen Fangqing sneered with undisguised sarcasm. We don't have a big chance of winning this game, and Beihai has no chance of winning either. We have our own positions. What's tested is the rationality and wisdom of both sides. We'll try to take something from each other when the other side can accept it. Beihai wants freedom, and we want to control it. Li Huaqing turned to look at Chen Fangqing. But that's all. We don't want war. No one wants war. What this game needs most is rationality. Those who are impulsive, have killing intent, and can't control themselves will end up out. Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes and kept silent for a long time. The best news is that we're well prepared now. After more than 20 years of planning, we have a big chance of winning. So if possible, we can't give the Wang family of Beihai or Emperor Dong's palace too much time. Chen Fangqing lowered his head and kept silent for a while. Then he slowly said, I'll talk to Wang Qinglei, have a good talk. Chapter 808. Wang Qinglei sat quietly in his office, listening to the report of an old subordinate of Yuzhou. Saint, a new invincible realm expert, boarded Wang Shengxiao's plane. As soon as this happened, Wang Qinglei heard about it. When everyone was thinking about the possible meaning behind it, Wang Qinglei was undoubtedly the most uneasy one. However, Wang Shengxiao stayed in Yuzhou for too short a time. Saint was too decisive. So until now people only knew the news, but they didn't know what happened in that hospital. Is there still no news from the hospital? Wang Qinglei looked at his watch and asked slowly. The person who talked to him on the phone was a deputy mayor of Yuzhou, who was transferred from the position of speaker of a city in Wuxia. He could be regarded as his trusted subordinate, so the other party was very calm about his report, and his questions were very straightforward. No. As Wang Qinglei's old subordinate, Lu Xiu, the deputy mayor of Yuzhou, held the phone with a solemn and serious expression. I've sent someone there, but that hospital is a bit special and is closely watched by the army headquarters. Speaker, this matter is not so simple. I don't think there will be any valuable news in the hospital. The key is the attitude of that person in the desert. He was one of Wang Qinglei's most valued confidants. At the age of 46, he was at the level of deputy governor and the position of deputy mayor of Yuzhou, which was a very valuable position. Such a young age and position matched perfectly. If someone helped him, it was very likely that he would rise rapidly. Wang Qinglei was undoubtedly his benefactor. He was very clear about the estrangement between the speaker and the Southeast group. More clearly, if the speaker could win, he would be rewarded according to his contributions in the future. After a year, he was very likely to go further. Even if he couldn't be promoted in Yuzhou, it was very likely that he would be sent to serve as the governor of a province. And if Wang Qinglei failed as a confidant, Lu Xiu would not have a good end. The facts were in front of him. He naturally had to do his best for the things that the old leader cared about. Wang Qinglei snorted softly and rubbed his tightly frowned eyebrows. The attitude of that person in the desert? He smiled bitterly and somewhat self-deprecatingly. No matter what the attitude of that person was, it was not something he could influence. Lu Xiu heard Wang Qinglei's bitter smile, hesitated, and continued, "Speaker, don't forget that you are also a member of the Wang family of Beihai." Wang Qinglei was stunned. He narrowed his eyes and said, "What are you trying to say?" "You're the most important figure in the Wang family of Beihai. If you win this game, you'll be the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai in the future. Now what Mount Dibbing can give to that person, you might be able to." Lucio remained calm and collected. After a brief silence, Wang Qinglei let out a long breath and calmly said, "Let's call it a day. Pay more attention to the hospital, and look for me if there's any problem." Lucio smiled, nodded, and hung up the phone. Wang Qinglei stood up and paced around his office. After thinking for a while, he picked up his phone and called Chen Fangqing. The phone rang twice before it was hung up. At this time, Chen Fangqing, who had received the news, should be discussing with Li Huacheng. Wang Qinglei returned to his desk, dealt with a few documents, and waited silently. More than an hour later, his phone suddenly rang. Wang Qinglei answered the phone calmly. "Hello, Prime Minister." "Yes, Comrade Qinglei, are you looking for me?" On the phone, Chen Fangqing's voice was steady and calm. His mentality might be a little unbalanced. But compared with Wang Qinglei, who had no way out, Chen Fangqing still had the right to control him. Wang Qinglei smiled and said in a deep voice, "What do you think of Saint's actions, Prime Minister?" Chen Fangqing did not speak. Whether this is the test of Emperor Dong's palace or the decision of Emperor Dong's palace, Li Tianlan's wild ambition has undoubtedly been exposed. "Prime Minister, I think we must take action." Wang Qinglei continued. "What do you think?" Chen Fangqing asked slowly after a moment of silence. "I think we should pay a proper visit to Minister Dongcheng," Wang Qinglei said without hesitation. "Not only Minister Dongcheng Wudi, but also Minister Dongcheng Hanguang. In addition, we need a clear attitude from the four spirit generals of Zhongzhou State, Gong Sunqi, Yi Li Wangsheng, and even Sai City, all the organizations that keep close ties with Emperor Dong's palace. They can be close to Li Tianlan, but they can't forget their responsibilities in Zhongzhou State." "Go on," Chen Fangqing said with no fluctuation in his voice. "In addition, I need the full cooperation of Zhongzhou State." Wang Qinglei continued. Yuzhou Hidden Dragon Sea. In the Prime Minister's office, Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes and his voice was a little gloomy. "Full cooperation? Activate all the forces of Zhongzhou State left in Beihai." Wang Qinglei's voice was decisive and ruthless. "There's no time. I can't afford the slightest risk now. I personally think Li Tianlan hasn't made up his mind yet. Saint's going to Beihai may be a test of Emperor Dong's palace, or he has made up his mind but hasn't invested resources. Anyway, we have to show him Zhongzhou State's determination to take Beihai, show him the power of Zhongzhou State, and the consequences of going against the will of Zhongzhou State. I suggest using all the chess pieces of Zhongzhou State left in Beihai, cooperate with the Vatican and East Island, and stir up the greatest chaos as soon as possible before Li Tianlan makes up his mind." Chen Fangqing's body tensed quietly for a moment, and he didn't speak. "There's no time." Wang Qinglei said blandly, "Don't say that Zhongzhou State doesn't have enough power in Beihai. It's impossible. Prime Minister, when you came to me it was 15 years ago. At that time, I was still a deputy governor of Wuxia, not even a director of Wuxia. You were already prepared at that time. If I'm not wrong, when the Li family collapsed more than 20 years ago, you started to operate. But at that time, it was not you and President Li Huaqing who were responsible for these things. After more than 20 years of planning, I'm looking forward to how powerful Zhongzhou State is hiding in Beihai. I personally think our current strength is enough." Chen Fangqing was silent for a long time, and then said slowly, "I don't deny that what you said makes sense, but I can't give you an answer on this matter for a while." He was telling the truth. Zhongzhou State started to plan this more than 20 years ago. At that time, neither he nor Li Huaqing was in the position now. In order to activate all the forces, they had to visit some retired but still had great influence. Only when everyone united their thoughts could they exert the most powerful combat effectiveness. Wang Qinglei said yes and said, "I will persuade the Vatican and East Island." "Okay." Chen Fangqing nodded and suddenly said, "If this plan is passed in Zhongzhou State, Beihai will inevitably be in chaos. How chaotic do you want Beihai to be? Wang Qinglei was stunned. He didn't seem to think about this. He held the phone and thought about it for a long time before he laughed. His smile was elegant and gentle, but there was madness in his eyes. Turn the world upside down. He held the phone and said calmly. Chapter 809. Wang Qinglei's voice was clear and steady. It was because of the clarity that Chen Fangqing could clearly feel the depression and madness in his voice. This kind of emotion was so strong that it seemed to hit Chen Fangqing across the phone. It was so heavy that Chen Fangqing felt a little suffocated. To turn the Wang family of Beihai upside down. Even if he was the Prime Minister of Zhongzhou State, he couldn't imagine what it would be like. But there was no doubt that it was indeed the picture he had been looking forward to for a long time. Now it seemed that Wang Qinglei seemed to be crazier than they thought. Chen Fangqing was a little relieved. He was also a little shocked. The plan did start a long time ago. In the first moment after the collapse of the Li family, the top leadership of Zhongzhou State had begun to operate secretly. Wang Qinglei was not the first candidate they chose. Before this, they'd even vaguely tried to contact Wen Siyuan, but they were all rejected. Moreover, he didn't give them any leeway. Even the current two giants of the Southeast Group, they had secretly probed them before. The repeated failures did not make Zhongzhou State give up the idea. In fact, the continuous growth of the Wang family of Beihai had reached the point where Zhongzhou State had to try its best to weaken it. They had no choice, just like the Wang family of Beihai was destined not to compromise. Therefore, although the leaders of that session did not choose a satisfactory spokesperson, they took advantage of the chaos of the Li family, the turmoil of the Southeast Group, and the silence of Beihai to place a large number of chess pieces in Beihai. These chess pieces quietly took root in Beihai, involving various fields, the Southeast Group, and the Beihai core. Then it was another leader's effort. The chess pieces scattered in Beihai grew strong and grew, but they still did not choose a good spokesperson. In the middle of that session, Wang Qinglei appeared in everyone's sight. His age and his ability made him attract a lot of people's attention at the first time. At that time, Wang Qinglei was like the current Wang Jingxin. He was low-key and gentle, but extremely dazzling in the eyes of those who cared about him. This time the contact was unexpectedly smooth. The two sides almost hit it off. Wang Qinglei passed all the tests and inspections. In the past 10 years, every heavyweight of the Southeast Group had something to do with Wang Qinglei's behind-the-scenes operation. Similarly, every time Wang Qinglei was promoted, with the support of the Southeast Group, it also had something to do with the academics and the Prince Group. What surprised Chen Fangqing and others most was that Wang Qinglei actually drew Wang Xiaorao to his side. They didn't trust Wang Xiaorao at first. The lineal descendant of Mount Dibing was either a single lineal descendant, or a brother or a sister, or a brother and a sister. For hundreds of years, the brothers who occupied the position of patriarch in Mount Dibing had never betrayed the clan. Wang Xiaoyao could be said to be the first case. Until now, Wang Xiaoyao had done a lot of things in secret. Even so, Chen Fangqing was still a little wary of him, and did not pull Wang Xiaorao into the core circle of their conspiracy against Beihai. But it had to be admitted that as Wang Xiaoyao approached Wang Qinglei, the two of them joined forces, and the arrangement inside Beihai province became easier. Today, the power of Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao, the power of the Vatican, East Island, the Jiang family of South America, and the power of Zhongzhou State. Adding everything together, they already had enough power to shake the foundation of the North Sea. That was why Wang Qinglei said he wanted to turn the North Sea province upside down. Confident and crazy. What do you need from me? Chen Fangqing was silent for a moment before he slowly said, "Give us enough credit." Wang Qinglei said. Chen Fangqing frowned. "You should know that we have never doubted you. Maybe we had an investigation before, but after so many years of cooperation, no one will doubt your position and determination." "I mean us," Wang Qinglei said blandly. "You mean Wang Xiaoyao?" Chen Fangqing narrowed his eyes. He is not only Wang Tianzong's younger brother, but also an invincible realm expert. At present His Majesty Moray Jiangguochu, Tianhai Wuji, and Yagyu Kuromi. On the surface, we have 5 invincible realm experts. And there is another invincible realm expert in the dark, who is the only invincible realm killer in the dark world. 6 people. This kind of strength is very strong. But facing the Wang family of Beihai, no one dares to say that we are 100% sure. If Li Tianlan joins forces with the Wang family of Beihai, who knows to what extent Li Tianlan's strength will be? Who knows to what extent the strength of Saint will be? Who is sure that the Dark Knights will not intervene? Who is sure that the Lin clan will stay out of it? There are too many variables in this matter. Pulling Wang Xiaoyao into this circle can only be good. Wang Qinglei said. He is just one person. What can he change? Chen Fangqing didn't take it seriously. Don't underestimate Wang Xiaoyao. Wang Qinglei laughed in a low voice. On the surface, although he just entered the Invincible Realm last year, in fact, no one knows when he broke through the Invincible Realm. Maybe he alone can stop Li Tianlan. If Zhongzhou State warns Mount Shu, Saint can't act rashly. In Northern Europe, it has been a bit lively recently. Wang Xiaoyao and His Majesty can join forces in Northern Europe and make trouble in Northern Europe, so that Flaming Fire can't get away. In the Lin clan, Wang Xiaoyao can also use the resources in his hands to join forces with the Jiang family of South America. They target the branch of the Lin clan in South America, and Lin Fengting will be busy with his own affairs. Do you understand? Wang Xiaoyao can play a key role in this chaos. Not to mention these, we can't ignore his own combat capability. He has been working with me for many years, but he has never entered this circle. Your concerns will also become his concerns. Chen Fangqing held the phone and didn't speak for a long time. Trust Wang Xiaoyao? He always felt that something was wrong. But there was no reason to doubt what Wang Xiaoyao had done in the past few years. The main reason was his identity. He was Wang Tianzong's younger brother. They had the same father and mother. I've always wondered why Wang Xiaoyao would betray Wang Tianzong with his identity? Chen Fangqing asked. He had raised this question, but Wang Qinglei's explanation was not thorough enough. Because of his name Wang Xiaorao. Wang Tianzong's original intention was to let him be King Xiaorao for a lifetime, the kind without power. But who would be willing to do so? Wang Tianzong is so dazzling. He was suppressed too much by my brother's side. That's it. Chen Fangqing shook his head subconsciously. Wang Qinglei was silent for a moment and continued. It also has something to do with Qin Weibai. Chen Fangqing paused slightly, narrowed his eyes and whispered. What do you mean? Wang Xiaoyao likes Qin Weibai. Wang Qinglei's voice was low. He doesn't pretend to like her. He really likes her. That kind of love and affection you may not be able to imagine. It can even be said that he thinks about her day and night. Wang Qinglei smiled. As far as I know, before Li Tianlan appeared, Wang Xiaoyao personally begged Wang Tianzong, hoping that Wang Tianzong would personally propose marriage to Samsara Palace. The conditions he offered were too outrageous, so Wang Tianzong refused. The two brothers quarreled for a long time. It is said that Wang Xiaoyao even knelt down, but Wang Tianzong never agreed. Later, Wang Tianzong met Qin Weibai once. It is said that he wanted Qin Weibai to marry Wang Shengxiao. Obviously, a woman like Qin Weibai is very suitable to be the hostess of the Wang family of Beihai. Her role is even greater than that of summer solstice. There is no need to elaborate the details, but everything should be true. I think the estrangement between the two brothers began at that time. Wang Xiaoyao also began to test me at that time, and gave me preliminary cooperation. Later, when Li Tianlan appeared, Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Tianzong lost their thoughts. So, Chen Fangqing's face softened. For a woman? Qin Weibai is not an ordinary woman. Wang Qinglei said lightly. Chen Fangqing was silent. Qin Weibai was indeed not an ordinary woman. Her perfection was from the inside out, from appearance to thought. In the eyes of outsiders, she was absolutely a perfect, almost evil, or even terrible woman. If this kind of woman did not have Li Tianlan, and wanted to take advantage of her own advantages, she definitely had the potential to ruin the country and the people. The first beauty of Zhongzhou State. Chen Fangqing had also heard of this title. But the funny thing was that the so-called first beauty of Zhongzhou State did not even have a nationality of Zhongzhou State. And the most important point, Wang Qinglei continued, in the content of my cooperation with Wang Xiaoyao, if we finally overthrow Mount Dibing, The new patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai will be him, not me. Chen Fangqing's body shook, and all the doubts in his heart seemed to be relieved in an instant. He smiled and said slowly, "Are you willing to do that?" Wang Qinglei also smiled and did not speak. Chapter 8:10. When Yu Chuanguang walked into Wang Qinglei's office, there was dead silence in the office. As the owner, Wang Qinglei sat on the chair quietly and looked at the ceiling. He was as silent as a statue. "Something on your mind?" Yu Chuanguang smiled and asked casually. As the two biggest rebels of the Southeast Group, the relationship between Speaker Wu Yue and the governor could no longer be described as harmonious. It was clear that the fate of the two had been firmly intertwined. For this reason, the difference between the duties of the governor and the speaker had become extremely blurred between the two. Under the overwhelming pressure from the outside world, the two who held Wu Yue tightly in their hands were like true confidants, and there was no longer any courtesy between them. Wang Qinglei opened his eyes, glanced at him, and shook his head silently. This movement was simple and pure. It did not mean to deny, but it showed endless exhaustion. This was the Wang Qinglei in Yu Chuanguang's eyes. In the eyes of the Southeast Group, he had wild ambitions. In the eyes of the Wang family of Beihai, he was unforgivable. In the eyes of Chen Fangqing, Li Huaqing and others, he was crazy and extreme. In the hearts of many cadres of Wu Yue, he was deep and unpredictable. Different people had different Wang Qinglei in their hearts. In Yu Chuanguang's eyes, Wang Qinglei was just a bearer who was about to be completely crushed by the huge pressure. He had not been the governor of Wu Yue for a long time, but when he was in contact with Wang Qinglei in private, he had always been like this. Wang Qinglei knew that there might be some factors that wanted to lower his and Wang Xiaoyao's guard, but he also knew that during this period of time, these years, and even these years, Wang Qinglei did not have a good time. Years of secret arrangements and plans were exposed little by little, and Wang Qinglei completely appeared in everyone's sight. In the crucial change of office only 1 year, the slightest movement in Zhongzhou state was enough to make Wang Qinglei highly nervous. "It's okay." Yu Chuanguang sat down, as if to comfort him, but his tone was calm and confident. "It's just that Saint went to Mount Dibing. It doesn't mean that he will cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. It's just a possibility. We don't have to be so nervous." "How can it be so simple?" Wang Qinglei shook his head, and his voice was a little hoarse. "Even if they really join hands, it's nothing." Yu Chuanguang said, "Li Tianlan is indeed very strong, but he is not as strong as the rumors say. He is now the #1 expert in the dark world besides Lin Fengting. If he really dares to appear in Beihai, Xiaoyao can stop him. As for the other invincible realm experts who are related to him, you can handle the foreign ones and Xiaoyao can handle the domestic ones. In terms of pure strength, we still have the absolute upper hand." Wang Qinglei thought about it, smiled bitterly, and lit a cigarette. "That's true, but when I think about it carefully, I still feel a little uneasy. I don't know where the problem is, or if I'm too worried about gains and losses." He took a deep drag on the cigarette, exhaled the smoke bit by bit, and said softly, "We can't afford to lose." Yu Chuanguang was silent for a moment, then nodded. He was indeed a sore loser. Wang Qinglei couldn't afford to lose. He could not afford to lose either. There was no doubt that he came to Wu Yue at great risk, or it could be said that he came to Wu Yue purely because of his friendship with Wang Xiaoyao. He used to be the mayor of Huating. In the eyes of most people, the mayor of a municipality serving as the governor of a province was definitely not a promotion, especially when Yu Chuanguang was the core of the Southeast Group. It was impossible for ordinary people to sit in the position of mayor of Huating. The Southeast Group sent him here to prepare to regain the supreme power of Huating. However, Yu Chuanguang chose Wu Yue, which directly caused the Southeast Group to be forced to give up the plan to take over Huating, or at least to postpone the plan for several years. He gave up the position of Zhongzhou State Councillor and Speaker of Huating. It was for the position of Zhongzhou State Councillor and Speaker of Wu Yue. If Wang Qinglei could go up next year, this position could only be his. This was the balance between Wang Qinglei and Wang Xiaoyao. Yu Chuanguang played the core role. Only when he completely controlled Wu Yue could Wang Xiaoyao control the Wang family of Beihai in the future. If Wang Qinglei couldn't go up, Yu Chuanguang would also lose the opportunity to enter the Zhongzhou State Parliament. Standing in this position, under the current situation, he and Wang Qinglei were facing the same situation. They were either soaring up the sky or falling straight into the abyss. Don't be too nervous. Yu Chuanguang was silent for a while, shook his head and said softly, "It is very likely that the several invincible realm experts related to Li Tianlan will not participate in this matter. Li Tianlan is also so powerful that he makes people desperate. One more person won't affect the overall situation." Wang Qinglei nodded, muttered, and said slowly, "At present it seems so." He shook his head again. "Anyway, the sooner the chaos happens, the better. A long night is fraught with trouble. I can't afford to delay it." Xiaoyao also means the same. Yu Chuanguang said slowly, "According to him, Mount Dibing seems to have found something abnormal. At present, the work of investigating foreign forces is much more careful than before. They should have noticed something." "It's too late." Wang Qinglei twitched the corner of his mouth, revealing a sneer. The little guy is still too inexperienced. When it came to the core members of the Wang family of Beihai, even if they were standing on the opposite side, Yu Chuanguang still didn't say anything. "I don't want to wait anymore," Wang Qinglei said. "They say that we need to be fully prepared. Hey, in fact, there is no such thing as complete. For me, half of the certainty is enough to take a gamble. I just talked to the Prime Minister on the phone. In principle, the Prime Minister agreed to use the power of Zhongzhou State in Beihai. But I still need to communicate with other comrades to make a final decision, especially some old comrades. I will be in Yuzhou during this period. You should pay more attention to Wuxia. If there is anything, you can contact me and we will discuss it." Yu Chuanguang narrowed his eyes, nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, have a safe trip." Wang Qinglei said yes and continued, "In addition, we need to inform Xiaoyao. If we are right, the girl Yuetong is the key to the successful cooperation between the Wang family of Beihai and Emperor Dong's palace. We'd better find her." "How can it be so easy?" Yu Chuanguang shook his head. "Little princess has only been familiar with a few places since she was a child. Beihai Yuzhou Wuyue Huiting. She has searched everywhere, but there is no news at all. Zhongzhou State is so big. If she wants to hide, finding her is as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack. Anyway, we still have to try." Wang Qinglei said. "As for Wuyue, organize an investigation in the near future." Yu Chuanguang nodded and didn't say anything. He suddenly asked, "Whose idea is it to find little princess? Yours? Or the Prime Minister?" "It's the council's idea," Wang Qinglei said calmly. Yu Chuanguang said yes, and his eyes were a little cold. Chapter 8:11. It was not the first time for Saint to come to Mount Dibing. Whether as the Sword Master of Mount Shu or as the Super Master of Samsara Palace, he had been here more than once. But this time was undoubtedly the best treatment he had ever received. Wang Shengxiao was well prepared in this regard. No one knew that Saint was here to take the coldness of 9 states, but everyone knew that Saint was here on behalf of Emperor Dong's palace. In this way, the Wang family of Beihai would not be too exaggerated in any way. The more ostentatious it was, the more close the relationship between the two sides could be shown, and the more it could make some people who were secretly ready to make trouble inside and outside the parliament worry. Mount Dibing, which had been split by a sword, had been repaired a lot by the Wang family of Beihai regardless of the cost. At least it was no longer ugly. The mountain and the foot of the mountain had become green and brilliant again. The large construction site at the top of the mountain had been reduced to almost non-existence, but some details still needed to be adjusted and repaired. The helicopter landed directly on the tarmac at the top of Mount Dibing. One by one, the important figures who played important roles in Beihai had begun to line up to greet them. A little farther away, the elites of the internal defense forces of the Wang family of Beihai were lining up. The full Heaven Punishment troop stood on the other side. Firmament, Enchantress Xianming, and other well-known experts in the dark world stood on the other side of the Heaven Punishment troop. The patriarchs of the 7 major sword-holding families of Beihai province had all arrived. The sun was shining on Mount Dibing, but it was silent. A solemn and chilling atmosphere surrounded the entire top of the mountain, iron-blooded and powerful. Saint got off the plane and watched all this silently. He did not think that the Wang family of Beihai wanted to scare him. But there was no doubt that at such a critical moment, the Wang family of Beihai was showing its strength to make those who cooperated with them feel at ease. Saint's eyes turned and finally fell on a woman. It was a woman who looked to be in her 40s. She was middle-aged, but her body was not bloated. Instead, she was extremely tall. She was about 1.9 meters tall and had a moderate figure. Her appearance was not considered beautiful. A shallow scar extended from her face to the back of her ear. She stood there quietly, motionless. Next to her, slightly behind her, were Firmament and Enchantress. Saint narrowed his eyes. He had never seen this woman. There was no such woman in the information of Samsara Palace. As if sensing Saint's gaze, the woman lifted her head and glanced at him before nodding slightly. Saint was expressionless, but the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. He took a deep look at the man and asked, "Who is that?" "She's Phoenix." Wang Shengxiao smiled and said softly, "My aunt." After a pause he added, "Kiss auntie." Saint's pupils suddenly contracted. Kiss my aunt. Which also meant, was she Xia Zhi's biological sister? Phoenix. Saint had never heard of this name, nor had he heard of this code name, but he could clearly feel how powerful this person was. She just stood there quietly, but her faintly discernible aura seemed to cover Mount Dibbing. It was obscure, but extremely strong and blazing. That kind of aura was not deliberately aimed at Saint, but it made him feel a clear sense of oppression. The other party was very strong. Even in the eyes of an invincible realm expert, the other party was probably incredibly strong. This kind of strength and sharpness had almost surpassed the so-called realm. It was not the first time Saint had seen such a person. There were also such people in Zhongzhou state, and there was more than one. Li Tianlan in this state was one of them. Tribulation before the chaos in Eastern Europe was also one of them. Saint took a deep breath, glanced at the direction of the woman, and slowly said, "Sorry for my disrespect." The two sides were hundreds of meters apart. Phoenix slightly raised her head and glanced at him. Her body moved. The next second, she had come directly to Saint. At that moment, in Saint's perception, it was like a beast suddenly pouncing on him. In an instant, the sword intent surged all over Saint's body. The bright sunlight seemed to be twisted around him for a moment, and countless sword energy were fighting. It was all out of instinct. He took a step forward as if he was about to make a move. The woman froze and took another step back, indicating that she had no malice. Saint took a deep breath, suppressed the sword energy, and shook his head. "Sorry," he whispered. "My realm is not stable. I'm a little impolite." "Very strong." Phoenix's eyes lit up completely. "I heard that he is a new invincible realm expert in Zhongzhou state. If you are not busy, let's have a fight." "Auntie, he came here to take away a very important thing for the person in Emperor Dong's palace, not to fight." Wang Shengxiao smiled bitterly. "The one in the desert?" Phoenix slightly raised her eyebrows and thought for a moment. "In a year, if he has grown up, I should not be his opponent." Wang Shengxiao did not speak. Phoenix took another look at Saint. "Let's have a fight." She used a declarative sentence. "Not today." Saint was a little regretful. "I'm in a hurry to go back," Phoenix said. "I'm not interested in the cooperation between you. Whether Emperor Dong's palace and Beihai are enemies or friends, as long as they don't provoke me, I won't intervene. Leave an address and I'll find it when things here are over." Her words were a little contradictory, and she was extremely straightforward. Saint was a little confused. Auntie came here to wait for second uncle. Except for second uncle, she won't care about anything in Beihai. Wang Shengxiao sighed and said softly. Saint suddenly nodded to show that he understood. Many people in Zhongzhou state knew that Summer Solstice's family had a complicated relationship with Mount Dibbing. Summer Solstice married Wang Tianzong and was dead set on him. Everyone thought that this matter was over. But if Phoenix was Summer Solstice's younger sister, then she naturally had no good feelings for Mount Dibbing. But why did she come here to deal with Wang Xiaoyao? Saint recalled the information about Samsara Palace again, but he could not find any clues. He could only temporarily suppress his doubts. Anyway, Phoenix's arrival could be regarded as adding a top combat force to Mount Dibbing. Even if she was only responsible for dealing with Wang Xiaoyao, her role could not be ignored. What realm is it? Saint asked slowly. Ice condensing mirror. Phoenix's tone was calm and natural. Chi controlling, ice condensing, fire flaming, thunder shocking. Invincible. Saint froze for a while and finally laughed. He seemed to think this matter was very interesting. Okay. He nodded and said, this is my phone number. When this matter is over, you can come to Yuzhou to find me. Phoenix nodded and turned to leave. Saint narrowed his eyes and looked around again. Only then did he find that at this time on Mount Dibbing, there were some relatively strange or completely strange faces. The so-called relatively strange referred to the fact that they had never appeared on Mount Dibbing before, but they existed in the secret database of Emperor Dong's palace. And completely strange meant that they were really completely strange. There was no doubt that the Wang family of Beihai had been fully prepared to deal with the upcoming chaos. Saint looked around and whispered to himself, there is still one less invincible realm expert. What invincible realm? Wang Shengxiao was a little confused. Nothing. Saint smiled and said, let's go and get the sword. Chapter 8:12. The black blade of coldness of 9 states shone with a dark luster under the bright light. All the staff in the laboratory had left early. Not long after the ultra-high temperature furnace went out, the empty hall was silent and scorching. The two halves of the divine weapon were placed on a huge platform. It was deep and heavy. It was quiet. It was a little cold. Even desolate. Saint's palm slowly touched the cold blade. The sword intent of coldness of 9 states seemed to resonate with his palm, but it was a little slow and looked weak. Saint's eyes were a little regretful or pitiful. What a pity. Winner takes all. Wang Shengxiao stood beside him, calm and emotionless. Saint nodded and then shook his head. He looked at coldness of 9 states, narrowed his eyes slightly and whispered, how about coming with me? Coldness of 9 states already had its own will. Perhaps it was not as smart as Xianyuanfeng and could not express its emotions, but strictly speaking, it was also alive now, just a little ignorant. Saint gently tapped on the blade of coldness of 9 states and whispered, I'll take you to find the other you. The blade of coldness of 9 states suddenly shook. An indistinct emotion spread out from the sword. There was some hesitation, some reluctance, and some yearning. After all, swords and people were different. People might need some other things to understand what Xianyuanfeng was. But the ignorant coldness of 9 states would not. In Eastern Europe, when the two swords collided in an instant, it could already understand that it was another version of itself. A more complete version of itself. It was cut off by the other version of itself. Saint looked at it quietly, feeling its reluctance, and didn't say anything. He didn't know if it was the same when the Wang family of Beihai handed coldness of 9 states to Dongqing Huangtu for the first time many years ago, or many years later. But any life longed for completeness and freedom. So he didn't say anything more and waited quietly. Crack. In the clear sound of collision, the two broken blades of coldness of 9 states collided slightly, and seemed to have made a decision. The two blades moved slightly toward Saint and quickly shrank. Saint held out his palm. Coldness of 9 states, which had become extremely soft, wrapped Saint's finger and spread all the way up, finally turning into a black arm guard. Saint lowered his head and touched the arm guard, feeling a little happy. He turned around and looked at Wang Shengxiao. Are you leaving after dinner? Wang Shengxiao smiled calmly. He seemed to be emotionless, but at the same time, he seemed to be suppressing all his emotions. From this moment on, the first murderous weapon that had accompanied the Wang family of Beihai for hundreds of years left the Wang family of Beihai. In its long life in the future, it would accompany another chosen one. This fact was bloody for everyone in the Wang family of Beihai. But Wang Shengxiao didn't show anything. For the first time, Saint sensed an unfathomable shrewdness from the new patriarch of North Sea. This was something that even Li Tianlan did not have. A hint of wariness flashed across his eyes, and he shook his head. No need. He said softly, I'm in a hurry to go back. I can't leave the hospital for too long. Wang Shengxiao was silent for a moment and nodded. All right. He gestured for Saint to leave with him and asked softly, How are the injuries of the two princes? Since they were cooperating, Saint didn't mind revealing some information. He shook his head and said, "Not very good." Today, many wounded people from the chaos in Eastern Europe were still living in the hospital he guarded. More than a year had passed, and some people had left the hospital, such as Gong Sun-chi and Yi of the Four Spirit Generals. Black Tortoise would also leave the hospital in the near future. In the hospital he guarded, the two people with the most serious injuries were also the two with the strongest strength. Tribulation. Lishi. Their injuries still did not improve. So far in the battle in Eastern Europe, the two were still in a deep coma, and there was no improvement. Lishi's position was unclear. If Tribulation could wake up, the first expert in the Dark World might not be Lin Fengting. Now an invincible realm killer with the code name Ju had become the top killer in the Dark World, and stood at the top. If Tribulation could wake up and recover, no one could imagine how terrible a super assassin who had crossed the boundary of the peak of the invincible realm would be. Wang Shengxiao nodded. Hearing the news, he didn't know whether his mood was good or bad. The helicopter on the tarmac was on standby after being resupplied. Saint shook hands with Wang Shengxiao and didn't say much. He boarded the helicopter and left Mount Dibbing directly. Next, he would go to Zhongyuan to deliver the coldness of 9 states, and then return to Yuzhou as fast as possible to guard those seriously injured people standing beside Li Tianlan. Wang Shengxiao stood on the tarmac and looked up at the helicopter taking off. It went farther and farther in the air, and finally became a small black dot. He didn't speak for a long time. Without a sound, the tall phoenix walked over. Her footsteps were as light as a large cat's. This man is very strong. She looked up at the direction where the helicopter left and said slowly, "How can the deputy palace master of Emperor Dong's palace not be strong?" Wang Shengxiao said quietly, "According to our analysis, although he is over 40 years old, he is still very likely to step into the peak of the invincible realm. His foundation is too stable." Phoenix nodded and said yes. "Did he take the coldness of 9 states?" Phoenix asked. Wang Shengxiao said yes. "He took the murderous weapon human emperor?" She repeated it again. Wang Shengxiao's eyebrows moved, and he said yes again. "Huh." Phoenix laughed and said with some sarcasm, "The Wang family of Beihai is really a big family." Wang Shengxiao didn't say anything. Everyone is worried about the future of Beihai. I don't think there is anything to worry about. Phoenix sneered slightly. How can such a big family business collapse in an instant? You are now the patriarch of Beihai. Today you send human emperor. Tomorrow you send the troops of all heavens. The day after tomorrow you send the immortality potion. And if you can't, send half of Beihai. There is a long time in the future, and Beihai is so big. Wang Shengxiao frowned suddenly, looked at Phoenix and said slowly, "Who told you that I'm sending the family business?" "I don't need someone to tell me." Phoenix said faintly, "That's the truth. No matter how big the foundation of Beihai is, it is impossible to disdain murderous weapons. If you tell me that human emperor is not the family business of the Wang family of Beihai, I will believe it. Even if you say that you have 10,000 human emperors, I will believe it, as long as you believe it yourself. I'm very happy to see Beihai like this." She turned slowly. "But I still feel sorry for my sister. The Wang family of Beihai doesn't need anyone to feel sorry for her or pity her." Wang Shengxiao said softly, "Of course the Wang family of Beihai won't have 10,000 human emperors. But you are right about one thing. The Wang family of Beihai is indeed a big family business." He looked at Phoenix's back and said faintly, "I can give human emperor because the Wang family of Beihai has something better than human emperor. Aunt, why don't you understand such a simple truth?" Chapter 8:13. Late at night. The dishes on the table, which had been warmed several times, were now completely cold. The fragrant tea leaves also became bland and tasteless. Qin Weibai took a sip of water. Her fingers gently moved the mouse, and she quickly and attentively flipped through the files on the computer. The computer screen, which was much wider than an ordinary person's, was split into 2. On the left screen, dense and complicated data flowed slowly, while on the right screen, the military advisor was talking nonstop. Qiushui City. As far as we know, Wang Xiaoyao established a reliable cooperative relationship with Huangfu Renjia about 3 years ago. The reason for the cooperation was that Wang Xiaoyao helped Huangfu Renjia catch a fugitive who was very important to the Huangfu family, and helped him become the second-in-command of the Huangfu family's intelligence system. In the video, the military counselor looked down at the documents and said in an orderly manner, "At present, we can confirm that Huangfu Renjia has 6 secret locations, 4 in Qiushui City and 2 in Kanglin City. There are 5 locations that are highly suspicious, and we can provide you with 2 locations." Any information transfer was complicated and cumbersome, especially the entanglement and transactions between several major forces: Emperor Dong's palace, Samsara Palace, Wang family of Beihai. On this day, the intelligence of the 3 major forces was completely intertwined. Li Tianlan was nurturing his sword. The parliament of Zhongzhou State could not wait any longer. The Wang family of Beihai remained calm and collected. Qin Weibai had to try her best to control the situation while Li Tianlan was silent, and delay the chaos in Beihai. The most important part of the job was the transfer of information. She needed to choose someone whom she could trust, and who was also trusted by the Wang family of Beihai. Then he passed the information to him. Then he handed it over to Wang Shengxiao. He asked Wang Shengxiao to use the power of Mount Dibbing to eliminate some threats in Beihai. But for Li Tianlan, the most favorable situation was that the chaos of the Wang family of Beihai broke out a little later, instead of being completely nipped in the bud. Thus, a portion of this information had to be hidden. What kind of information should be given? What kind of information should not be given? How to eliminate the threat of North Sea in the near future? And how to ensure that North Sea would definitely fall into chaos in the near future? These were all things that needed to be studied in detail. To put it simply, if this piece of information was to be handed over to Mount Dibbing as a weapon to attack the dark forces, then they must first determine the point of attack. Which 2 locations? On the still dark screen, the hoarse voice rang out. "Come on. One is at Qiushui City Pier number 3, and the other is at Kanglin City Riverside Club," military counselor said. After a brief silence, the hoarse voice sounded again. "Out of these 2 locations, Kanglin City must be eliminated." "Reason?" military counselor asked. "This place is a little close to the other hiding spots you provided, and there are some connections that can't be made clear in a short time. Some of the relationships within the North Sea are very complicated, and there are some joints that I haven't seen clearly until now. If we make a move on this place, it may lead to the exposure of other hiding spots in Kanglin City that can't be exposed. The impact will be huge, so it's better not to make a move." In that case, military counselor remained silent. Nowadays, several superpowers' lurking forces had almost spread all over Beihai. These lurking sites rarely existed in isolation. Generally, they were in a line either long or short. Kanglin City, the lurking site, involved at least 3 places. If they gave up, it meant that they would have 3 less places to give to Mount Dibbing. 3 seemed like a small number, but they didn't reveal much to Mount Dibbing. So it seemed that these 3 points were very useful. The number 2 spot in Queen City can be given to Mount Dibbing. I'll take care of other problems. In the dark screen, the voice was still unhurried. "How sure are you?" military counselor asked in a deep voice. He didn't doubt the position and ability of the other party, but he had to be careful about this matter. If he represented Samsara Palace now, then the other party represented Emperor Dong's palace. Although Li Tianlan didn't know of his existence, he had been doing things for the Li family all these years. In the sequence of the Li family, he had no name, only a code name. Migres. This was a person who had given almost everything for the Li family. In order to hide his identity and not expose it, he even gave up his only daughter in a difficult choice. For more than 20 years his loyalty had never changed. After Li Honghe died, he naturally regarded Li Tianlan as the young master. Today the information of the 2 sides was completely shared. Saint passed all the information he had to Migres, and then the 2 of them confirmed the attack points one by one. Now it was coming to an end. Once all the information was confirmed, Migres would take this incomplete but helpful information to Mount Dibbing to see Wang Shengxiao to deter the several dark forces lurking in Beihai, delay their plans, and make them more cautious. In military counselor's view, the point proposed by Migres shouldn't have been exposed. 100% sure. Migres said lightly, "Don't worry, I can handle it." Listen to him. Qin Weibai, who had been silently looking at the computer, suddenly said. Saint froze for a moment, and then stopped talking. "When you finish sorting it out, send me a copy of the specific information." Qin Weibai continued. "Why?" Migres asked. "The reason is the same as the last time I asked you to find Wang Shengxiao." Qin Weibai's eyes flickered slightly. "I'll add some things to the information and test it again." Migres was silent for a moment and was a little confused. "You don't trust Wang Xiaoyao? Or you don't trust his current position? He is not trustworthy in the first place." Qin Weibai said. "And it's not a matter of trust or not. I just want to make sure again. He should know very well that Yagyu Kurasumi didn't go to Jinling City some time ago. Wang Shengxiao doesn't know about this." Migres's voice was low. "It doesn't mean anything." Qin Weibai shook her head. "In this matter, no matter how cautious we are, we can't be too careful." Migres was silent for a moment and said, I see." Qin Weibai said no more, and continued to sort out the documents. She looked more and more serious and focused. Military counselor glanced at her with a somewhat complicated look in his eyes. This seemingly natural transaction contained too much cautiousness and intrigue. Qin Weibai had devoted herself to the coming chaos in Beihai. Military counselor naturally knew why. Because of 2 words. Not convinced. That was all. She didn't know whether he was not convinced by himself or not convinced by her. In the past, whenever she or that person was so focused, something big always happened in the dark world. For example, the final battle in Heaven Capital. Another example was the chaos in Eastern Europe. Compared with the other Qin Weibai, the current Qin Weibai might still be a little immature. She couldn't do it as easily as that person. But at this time, she really tried her best to control everything. Whether that was her other self or not, she didn't want to lose. Military counselor took a deep breath, reached out his hand, knocked on the table and whispered, "Let's study it." Chapter 8:14. At 2:00 in the middle of the night, Migres and military counselor finally completed the handover of the report. The complicated information network was sorted into a relatively simple network map in the shortest time, and handed over to Qin Weibai. Qin Weibai changed some of the things, and even deliberately left some clues. Then she confirmed the information that was finally delivered to the Wang family of Beihai. Migres went offline immediately. Qin Weibai leaned against the chair, and gently rubbed her eyebrows. "Do you still think there's something wrong with Wang Xiaoyao?" Military counselor asked slowly. "If there's something wrong with him, he has already gone too far. He didn't even leave any leeway." "I don't think there's something wrong with him," Qin Weibai said softly. "It's just that he can't be fine." Her voice was soft and firm. It was not a problem that she thought it was. It was a fact. There must be something wrong with Wang Xiaorao now. "Why are you so sure?" "He may have a problem with Wang Tianzong, but it's definitely not to the extent of fighting with Mount Dibbing to the death. He wants to take power and be promoted. These may be true, but he can't completely fall out with Mount Dibbing." Qin Weibai said softly. "In fact, he has already done it," military counselor said calmly. "Without him, several dark forces can't hide so many people in Beihai province. According to our estimation, there are more than 5 digits of people lurking in various cities of Beihai province. This number is updated every day, but what remains unchanged are the elites. Once chaos breaks out, the entire Beihai will be covered with blood. From the standpoint of Mount Dibbing, he is unforgivable. This is the crux of the problem." Qin Weibai got up and poured herself a glass of water. She said slowly, "He has done something that he can't do. He must be plotting something. I never doubt Wang Xiaoyao's standpoint, or his standpoint has nothing to do with me. I just think that when he is secretly planning something, maybe we can use this to get greater benefits." Military counselor opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he didn't say it in the end. The computer screen shrank for a moment. Military counselor's figure shrank. Saint, who was reconnected, appeared on the screen. The coldness of 9 states has been sent to Zhongyuan. Academician Dongcheng has begun to study it. I've been watching. At present, there is no progress. Saint, who had already returned to Yuzhou Hospital, said. He glanced at the military advisor, raised his eyebrows slightly, and asked directly, "You haven't gone offline yet?" "I've been so busy that I haven't even caught my breath yet. Where should I go offline?" The military counselor was baffled. "Didn't you arrest Hua Zhengyang to inspect Huading today?" Saint said. "Oh, it's past 12 o'clock now. That was yesterday." The military counselor was stunned for a moment. He slapped his forehead and said, "I forgot. Actually, I didn't pick him up yesterday. We agreed to have dinner together. Did I offend someone?" Saint chuckled and did not say anything. Has the fusion direction of Xianyuanfeng and Chill of the 9 states been decided? Qin Weibai interrupted the two and asked directly. There was no doubt that Dongqing Wujin was a well-deserved weapon development expert in Zhongzhou State, especially in terms of individual weapons. He was second to none in the world. The 2 models of sniper rifles of the Dongqing clan, Mad Strike and Sky Attack, had proved this. The small optical camouflage system on individual equipment could also prove this. For the entire Zhongzhou State, he was more than just a top talent. The existence of Dongqing Wujin was completely an authoritative figure in the field of individual weapons. The direction is the same as last time. Saint said. He means that the power of Xianyuanfeng doesn't need to be improved anymore. The only shortcoming now is the charging speed. After the fusion, Xianyuanfeng can not only bear the sword intent of Tianlan, but it can also be charged and used as a murderous weapon to speed up its energy absorption. This is the best choice. Qin Weibai nodded and didn't express any opinion. She just said softly, Migres will soon give the intelligence that the Wang family of Beihai needs to Wang Shengshao. The first wave of chaos in Beihai province is coming, but this time it will be led by Mount Dibing. The Vatican, East Island, and the Jiang family of South America will all have some people lurking in Beihai. You two need to discuss this, because we also need some usable people to lurk in Beihai. Whether it's to deal with future variables or the coming war, they are useful. In addition, we also need a group of people to support Beihai. What do you think? Saint looked at the military counselor. The remaining forces of the Samsara Palace were in the hands of the military counselor, and these forces would be integrated into Emperor Dong's palace bit by bit in the future. This operation might be the first step for the forces of the Samsara Palace to be integrated into Emperor Dong's palace. I have a lot of suitable people here. Military counselor said indifferently. But I need to figure out one thing. Are these forces lurking in Beihai to target other forces lurking in Beihai, or to compete with the Wang family of Beihai in the future? Both. Qin Weibai glanced at him. Then divide the list into 2 parts. One part will be hidden in the dark and stay dormant for a long time to strengthen our current forces in Beihai. The other part will be responsible for dealing with other forces. Emperor Dong's palace can also send some people, Saint said. The power of Mount Shu could hardly be used in this operation. Although the parliament had not talked to him until now, Saint knew very well that he himself might be under all kinds of restrictions. But the elites of Emperor Dong's palace could be used by Li Tianlan. The starting point of Emperor Dong's palace was extremely high. The main combat force under Li Tianlan's command were the best chosen from the graduates of the Deep Sea Academy and the Sky Academy. They had just graduated more than a year ago and might have seemed immature. But now, they were strong enough to be a force that could not be ignored. But the people of Emperor Dong's palace have to wait for Tianlan to make up his mind. Saint said. That day won't be too far away. Qin Weibai rubbed the cup with both hands and said indifferently, You are the deputy palace master. You can take out a list first and try to be as detailed as possible. Saint nodded and did not say anything else. Qin Weibai turned off the video and the computer. Her gaze was distant, looking in the direction of the North Sea province. Countless conspiracies and plots had begun to evolve and spread in the land that had been stable for hundreds of years. Emperor Dong's palace, Samsara Palace, Mount Dibing, the parliament. The Jiang family of South America, the Vatican, East Island, King Xiaoyao of Snow Mountain. There were also countless forces in the dark world that were ready to make trouble. Everyone's eyes were focused on Beihai. The place where demons danced. Qin Weibai smiled. Her eyes were bright and full of expectation. Chapter 8:15. The cooperation between Emperor Dong's palace and the Wang family of Beihai was very smooth. After both sides made satisfactory conditions, on the afternoon of the second day after Wang Shengxiao returned to Mount Dibing from the desert prison, a piece of intelligence about entering Beihai through special channels had appeared in front of Wang Shengxiao. Wang Shengxiao was meditating on the stage of formidable person. The breeze of Beihai blew. The letter in Xianming's hand shook slightly as the wind blew. Wang Shengxiao looked at the letter in Xianming's hand. His eyes flickered slightly and he asked, "Is it all here?" Xianming nodded and said yes. He was the chief intelligence officer of the Wang family of Beihai, and was responsible for the intelligence agencies of the Wang family of Beihai all over the world. Mount Dibing cooperated with Emperor Dong's palace. In terms of intelligence, Emperor Dong's palace naturally had to hand it over to him. No one could say anything. Wang Shengxiao reached out and took the envelope. The envelope was very thin. It was conceivable that there was not much content in it, but it was very important. A complicated look flashed in Wang Shengxiao's eyes. Emperor Dong's palace could send part of the intelligence so quickly, which meant a lot. First of all, this was definitely not the intelligence force of Emperor Dong's palace lurking in Beihai. To be precise, it should be the force of Samsara Palace. This letter completely meant that even if the master of Samsara Palace had fallen, Samsara Palace, which had always regarded the Wang family of Beihai as its imaginary enemy, still had trustworthy elite intelligence agencies operating inside Beihai province. However, looking at the content of this letter, it seemed that even if Samsara Palace still had hidden forces in Beihai, it seemed that there were not many, because Emperor Dong's palace provided very little information. Very little, but extremely accurate. Wang Shengxiao was not sure if the other party had hidden information. But at least if the content of the letter was true, Emperor Dong's palace did provide a very good clue. This was a very timely news. There are only two places. The intelligence of Samsara Palace is sure that there are elites of East Island lurking in Beihai in these two places. They are in Shenzhou and Floating Island. Wang Shengxiao handed the envelope to Xianming and said quietly, "Compare them." Xianming took the letter and glanced at it. He frowned and said, "If the news is true, then these two places are indeed out of our control." Of course, the Wang family of Beihai was not blind or stupid. Since he knew the actions of several dark forces, Wang Shengxiao had immediately after ordering the investigation of the entire Beihai province, the intelligence agency of Mount Dibing had been fully operational. In the past, they did not guard against Wang Xiaoyao and knew very little about his private life. Naturally, they did not know some of his secret strongholds. But nothing could be really flawless. As long as they carefully investigated, there would always be some flaws. Xianming almost wholeheartedly focused on this, looking for clues bit by bit. The work had progressed to the present, and there had been some results. However, the time was very short. At present, they had only determined a general direction. The information given by the Samsara Palace was in Shenzhou City and Floating Island City. Xianming hadn't found any clues in these two places yet. The intelligence of Samsara Palace was indeed helpful. A good clue, isn't it? Wang Shengxiao said calmly, "Send a group of people out and start with these two clues. Try to dig out more information, and find out all the rats lurking in front of our house. Don't leave any alive." Xianming was stern inwardly. He nodded solemnly. "I will do it immediately." Wang Shengxiao agreed and said intentionally or unintentionally, "Are there enough people? If not, transfer some people here. Jiangnan Society also has people in Beihai, right? Let them join in." Xianming was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay." In the sequence of the Wang family of Beihai, Jiangnan Society was responsible for the intelligence agency of the entire Zhongzhou state, and Beihai province was undoubtedly a part of Zhongzhou state. So there was a very interesting situation. Nominally, Xianming was Lu Shuanghua's leader, but in fact, it was difficult for him to lead Lu Shuanghua. Wang Tianzong didn't seem to notice this at the beginning, but when something really happened, people could realize how subtle this move was. Intelligence agencies had always been sensitive. Putting Lu Shuanghua and Xianming in a position of mutual restraint was undoubtedly a check and balance. Now Wang Shengxiao asked Lu Shuanghua's people to join in. There was no doubt that it was also a check and balance. The slight discomfort in Xianming's heart quickly disappeared. He didn't think that Wang Shengxiao was seizing power. However, in the current critical situation, the intelligence work was really not suitable for him to act arbitrarily. It could be said that Wang Shengxiao was guarding against him. From another perspective, it was also Wang Shengxiao's protection for him. Xianming smiled. I will call Shuanghua right away and ask him to lead the elites of Jiangnan society to Beihai. Wang Shengxiao nodded and took a deep look at Xianming. It seemed that everything was said in silence. Now that we have reached an agreement with Emperor Dong's palace, we don't need to be polite about some things. They can reach into our home to give us information, so we naturally have to return the favor. Since it is cooperation, we can't let our ally think that we know nothing about him, right? Wang Shengxiao said with a smile. Xianming narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? As far as I know, after the fall of the master of Samsara Palace hid a lot of things, including a lot of people, a lot of resources, a lot of experts. You draw up a list and give some of the people that Samsara Palace hides and thinks we still don't know to Samsara Palace. Tell them that this is my idea. I hope they can appear on the battlefield in Beihai. Wang Shengxiao said calmly. Xianming hesitated for a moment and agreed. The intelligence work of the Wang family of Beihai was naturally not only responsible for its own territory, but also collecting the movements and secrets of other forces. It could even be said to be the most important part of the intelligence work. The hostility that Samsara Palace showed to the Wang family of Beihai was so obvious. How could the Wang family of Beihai not make preparations? Now it seemed like it was time for these preparations to be put to use. In addition, Emperor Dong's palace has been developing well recently. We should also draw up a list for Emperor Dong's palace. If we make a big move, Li Tianlan can't refuse. But I want Zhongzhou State to see Emperor Dong's attitude. Wang Shengxiao continued. At least one of the figures standing in the public eye in Emperor Dong's palace should come. Xianming nodded again. Wang Shengxiao said no more and watched Xianming's back slowly disappear from the stage of formidable person. The setting sun on the horizon slowly sank into Beihai. Dusk was approaching. The tides of Beihai rose and fell. Standing on the ancient stone platform, Wang Shengxiao walked to the edge and stared at Beihai in the distance. Wisps of sword energy spread from afar with the tide. It was overwhelming. Sword energy was fighting over the stage of formidable person in Beihai. It was like the heartbeat of the sky. Wang Shengxiao was surrounded by sword energy. He took a deep breath, and his eyes became calmer and deeper. Chapter 8:16. The night was getting darker. Mount Dibing became brightly lit. Recently, the security measures on Mount Dibing had been upgraded by several levels under Wang Shengxiao's personal intervention. After he came back from the desert prison yesterday, he officially ordered that Mount Dibing would enter a state of war from that day on. Wang Shengxiao officially signed the expansion document of the Internal Defense Force of Mount Dibing at noon that day. The document had been officially issued to the Beihai Corps. The new vice-marshal of the Beihai Corps, Firmament, had begun to study the list. Wang Shengxiao made it clear that in the next week to half a month, the scale of the Internal Defense Force of Mount Dibing would be expanded from 13,000 people to 30,000 people. It was necessary to ensure that there would be no less than 15,000 combatants on Mount Dibing 24 hours a day. Today Mount Dibing was very busy and lively. The camp of the Internal Defense Force on the mountainside was expanding. A large number of weapons began to be installed in countless corners of Mount Dibing. The Internal Defense Force began to have patrol codes. Everything was arranged one by one, clear and distinct. The entire Mount Dibing seemed to have suddenly become an unbreakable and indestructible war fortress. With a large number of armaments and new elite combatants settled in the night, Mount Dibing, which had been completely destroyed and began to slowly recover, looked extremely powerful and ferocious in the night. A middle-aged man, who looked travel-worn, stood quietly at the foot of Mount Dibing. The light illuminated the foot of Mount Dibing, as if it were daytime. He stood quietly in the light, looking up at Mount Dibing quietly, motionless and silent. One patrol team after another slowly walked past him, carefully observing the surrounding environment. The density of the entire Mount Dibbing was several times higher than before. The atmosphere on the mountain, and at the foot of the mountain, was solemn and rigorous. But it didn't seem so nervous. The slowly moving white light once again swept over the middle-aged man. The monitoring system on Mount Dibbing didn't respond. The patrol team that constantly passed by him also didn't respond. A small space around the middle-aged man seemed to be slightly wrinkled. The wrinkles completely covered his body, but only covered his body, blocking all the light, shadow, and heat. Under the light, he was like a ghost standing in the nothingness. It was quiet on Mount Dibbing, with a touch of serenity in the solemnity. He looked up at Beihai seriously, sizing it up bit by bit, as if he was feeling something. Mount Dibbing was still the same. But he vaguely noticed that Mount Dibbing seemed to be different from the past. At the very least, it was different from the last time he came. What had changed here was not the terrain that had been changed by that mysterious prodigy's sword. Instead, it was a vague but real feeling, or rather a change. He didn't know what he was looking for here. If he was a specter, then he was searching for another specter. Wisps of sword chi spread under his feet. The invisible and majestic sword chi was like a huge net, spreading out on the ground along the soles of his feet. In an instant, it had enveloped thousands of meters around the foot of the mountain. Within the scope of the sword chi, every grass and every tree at the foot of Mount Dibbing was clearly sensed by him. But there was nothing. He frowned, hesitated, and took a step forward. The light faded into the distance. He stood on the mountainside. It seemed that there was no longer the strict surveillance at the foot of the mountain, but the overall defense was even more dense. Chaos was coming to Beihai. The actions between the Vatican, East Island, and the Jiang family of South America had become more and more obvious. The several superpowers had not revealed their intention to Beihai yet, but their cooperation was gradually exposed. Wang Shengxiao, who realized that the enemy was approaching, set up defenses throughout Beihai. But he did not ignore the defense of Mount Dibbing. Everyone knew very well that no matter what the goals of the superpowers were, no matter how chaotic Beihai would be, the final location of this war would be Mount Dibbing. This was the place where Wang Shengxiao prepared the final battle. The sword chi continued to spread. In the middle-aged man's perception, in the dark corners, countless elites of the Wang family of Beihai were lurking and observing the situation on the mountain. A large number of long-range snipers, fire-flaming realm, and occasionally thunder-shocking realm experts. His expression was calm as he searched quickly. The dense sword intent continued to spread, surging unceasingly. No one found his trace. Even when he was doing all this, he was standing next to a thunder-shocking realm expert from the Wang family of Beihai. The two sides were less than 2 meters away from each other, but the other side had been observing the front. There was still silence on the mountainside. His expression did not change at all. He just narrowed the range of the sword intent, and searched more carefully. The night was getting darker. After the night. When dawn was about to break, he had searched the entire mountainside of Mount Dibbing. He found nothing. The top of the mountain was ahead. He frowned and continued to go up. The tide rose and fell. The tide-like sword chi on the stage of formidable person began to retreat to Beihai. Wang Shengxiao, who had been in the most focused state of meditation, slowly opened his eyes, feeling refreshed. He slowly stood up and looked at the still dark night over Beihai. He looked extremely comfortable. The majestic and unimaginable sword chi was pulled out little by little from the stage of formidable person. This sword chi seemed to have merged with every drop of water in Beihai. It was extremely soft and incredibly tolerant. Wang Shengxiao gently raised his palm. The invisible sword chi retreated from his hand to Beihai. Such a touch was invisible to the naked eye, but the feeling was extremely clear. It was strand after strand of sword chi that revolved without end, and they seemed to be formed by nature, and were flawless. Every rotation of the sword chi seemed to represent the real supreme swordsmanship. The sword chi that surged to the stage of formidable person did not appear for a long time. But no one knew that Wang Shengxiao had broken through several small realms in just a few days while surrounded by the sword chi. Every time he meditated, it could be said that he truly advanced by leaps and bounds. The The sword chi that was integrated with the sea was like his biggest thought, and the most invincible inheritance of Beihai. He closed his eyes and faced the ocean, as if he was reluctant to part with it. Streams of sword chi appeared around him one after another, spinning continuously. It seemed that the sword chi of the same origin had merged instantly. Wang Shengxiao straightened his body. His perception was magnified infinitely in an instant. He felt the torrent on the seemingly calm sea of Beihai. He felt the sharpness and purity of the sword chi traveling in the sea. The vast Beihai was slightly stirring. The sword chi merged. His perception kept flying away, and he felt the other side of the sword chi. Wang Shengxiao gently raised the corner of his mouth. He waved in that direction and said good morning. In the next second, the majestic sword chi suddenly reversed its direction. Wang Shengxiao was passively integrated with the sword chi. A small amount of sword chi gathered on the stage of formidable person, pulling Wang Shengxiao's perception to cover the top of Mount Dibing. The pavilions, the chirping of birds, and the patrolling internal security troops all appeared in his perception. A familiar figure was standing in front of a palace in the center of the top of the mountain, staring at the palace, as if thinking about whether to go in or not. The palace was located in the center of the top of the mountain. It could be said to be the largest palace on Mount Dibing. Emperor Hall. The palace. The place where the patriarchs of the Wang family of Beihai lived. Although Wang Shengxiao had never lived in it, it could be said to be his residence now. No, the entire Beihai could be said to be his. Wang Shengxiao suddenly opened his eyes, and his pupils contracted rapidly. He subconsciously took out his phone and found Firmament's number. But after thinking for a while, he put the phone back. Then, without any hesitation, he walked down the stage of formidable person and went directly to Emperor Hall. He was the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. No matter what he faced, there was no possibility for him to retreat or hide, especially on Mount Dibing. The patrols passed by Wang Shengxiao one by one, and everyone greeted him respectfully. Wang Shengxiao responded with a smile and didn't say much. He didn't blame the patrol team for not discovering the distinguished guest who had rashly come to the door. With that person's current strength, if he didn't want to be discovered, no matter where he appeared, few people could find him. Making things difficult for these ordinary elites would only disappoint them. When approaching Emperor Hall, he waved his hand to call a patrol captain over, pointed to the direction of the kitchen, and said with a chuckle, "Go tell the kitchen to prepare breakfast. Make it rich." The captain saluted and quickly rushed to the kitchen. Wang Shengxiao carefully tidied up his clothes and slowly walked to Emperor Hall. The darkness on the horizon began to recede slowly. Dawn was coming and there was a hazy shimmer on Mount Dibing. Near Emperor Hall, all the elites of the internal security troops raised their hands and saluted as soon as they saw Wang Shengxiao. Everyone was respectful, but also a little confused. Because Wang Shengxiao had been on the stage of formidable person since he became the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai. He had never stayed here for a night. What was wrong with him today? Wang Shengxiao nodded and didn't say much. He just looked at Emperor Hall, which was close at hand. The sword energy on the stage of formidable person had retreated to the deep sea. In front of Wang Shengxiao, there was no one else except this luxurious palace and the elites of the internal security troops. Or rather, there was no one else. But Wang Shengxiao couldn't see it. Wang Shengxiao laughed at himself and walked over with the memory he had just felt. This position, if he was right, should be standing right next to him. The shimmer on the horizon flickered slightly. He raised his head and imitated the man's movements, watching quietly for a long time. The middle-aged man who had been searching on Mount Dibing all night turned his head and looked at Wang Shengxiao. The distance between the two was less than 1 meter. Wang Shengxiao couldn't feel his aura, but he could clearly see every expression on Wang Shengxiao's face. He narrowed his eyes slightly, feeling a little confused. Wang Shengxiao looked up at the palace in front of him and slowly opened his mouth. His voice was soft and slow. However, it exuded an aura of absolute majesty. Since when has Mount Dibing in Beihai become a place where others can come and go as they please? Everyone nearby was stunned for a moment. The elites of the internal security troops suddenly became nervous. They grabbed the guns in their hands and looked vigilant. The middle-aged man was obviously stunned for a moment. He didn't think Wang Shengxiao was bluffing. Otherwise, the location wouldn't be so coincidental. So was he exposed? He thought about it and shook his head with a smile. The sword energy in the nothingness slowly shrank. The folds of space around the middle-aged man were instantly smoothed out. He looked a little tired but not haggard. He appeared in front of Wang Shengxiao and said with interest, "How did you find me?" Wang Shengxiao slowly turned around and looked at the gentle smiling face beside him. He said quietly, "Long time no see, Uncle Lin." Chapter 8:17. Crack! There was no uproar or chaos before Emperor Hall. In the face of the sudden change, the elites of the internal security forces of Mount Dibing showed a completely rare quality. All the people who saw this scene raised their guns in silence and pulled the bolts. The black muzzles were aimed directly at the middle-aged man who suddenly appeared, as if they could fire at any time. Uncle Lin. This title sounded really polite. No matter what the relationship between this man and Wang Shengxiao was, for today's Mount Dibing, he was indeed a veritable uninvited guest. He came uninvited, sneaked around, and hid his head but showed his tail. These words could all be applied to him. This was really an extremely embarrassing thing. Lin Fengting was a little embarrassed and even a little guilty. It was hard to describe the feeling of being discovered soon after he came with full confidence. He coughed dryly, looked at Wang Shengxiao in front of him, and asked slowly, "How did you find me?" This was what he couldn't figure out the most. His talent in martial arts was indeed more terrifying than others had imagined, even slightly better than Li Guangtu's. In the chaos in Eastern Europe, he broke through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm and entered a new world. For today's dark world, he was really the top expert in the dark world. No one was his opponent. However, what many people didn't know was that breaking through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm was not his end. He was indeed only half a step away from the chosen one, but this half step was also big or small. He stood at the forefront of this half step and could vaguely see the end of martial arts. This feeling was very subtle. Not all people who broke through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm could stand at this height. This feeling, if really put into detail, was very much like the state when Wang Tianzong broke through the last step. However, Lin Fengting knew very well that he could only stop here. It was precisely because he could see the end of martial arts that he could clearly understand what he needed to pay in order to reach that step. Talent, luck, personal will, physical fitness, all of these were indispensable. But unfortunately, Lin Fengting almost did not have any of these conditions. To a martial artist, this was the saddest thing. Martial arts cultivation was originally a road to heaven, but not everyone could reach the end of this road. Every day, at every moment, someone would discover this fact. Maybe it was from the ice-condensing realm to the fire-flaming realm, or from the fire-flaming realm to the thunder-shocking realm, or from the thunder-shocking realm to the invincible realm. There were always some checkpoints in front of them, telling them that they could only go this far and could not go any further. Lin Fengting never thought that he would be stuck at this step. He was naturally disappointed, but he seemed to have been too lazy all his life, so even his disappointment was not too obvious. After adjusting his mood, he quickly stopped worrying about this matter. He could see the scenery at the finish line, but he couldn't cross it. If I can't, then I won't go. A stable state of mind allowed him to completely stabilize his new breakthrough. He stood at the peak of the dark world, and his ability to hide his sword energy was unparalleled in the world. It was impossible for the Wang family of Beihai to detect his presence. So how did Wang Shengxiao find him? Wang Shengxiao shook his head and said nothing. He really couldn't find Lin Fengting. If the sword intent from the deep sea hadn't gone against the flow, maybe Lin Fengting wouldn't know that the other party had been here even if he turned Beihai upside down. However, these topics could not be talked about with Lin Fengting, and there was no need to talk about them. Beihai, the Lin clan. The two of them may have been close and reliable partners for many, many generations. But after the chaos in Eastern Europe ended, they should both know that even if they were not enemies, they were not friends. Lin Fengting waited for a while, and seemed to understand something. He glanced at him and said with a chuckle, "I know that Mount Dibing will not welcome me now. Shengxiao, I come here with no malice." "I believe you." Wang Shengxiao nodded and said briefly. He believed what Lin Fengting said was true. With Lin Fengting's current strength, if he went all out regardless of the consequences, he could bring unimaginable disaster to Mount Dibbing alone. He might not be as good as the mysterious Chosen One, who almost destroyed Mount Dibbing with one sword strike. But unless the Wang family of Beihai was willing to die with him, there was really no other way. Uncle Lin, what are you doing here? Wang Shengxiao asked in a calm voice. When he was young, he liked Uncle Lin very much. He was not as serious and silent as his father. Instead, he was easy to get along with. So much so that for a period of time, he even yearned to live in the Lin clan. However, everything in the past had become a fleeting cloud. Now when he saw this uncle, there was only defensiveness left in his heart. Nothing. I just came to have a look, Lin Fengting said insincerely. He seemed to think of something and said with a smile. How is it? Has Song Xi given birth? Is it a boy or a girl? At the last moment when Li Tianlan swept across Beihai, he appeared in Mount Dibbing and knew the news that Song Xi was pregnant. It should have been a while since the little fellow was born. It's a boy. Wang Shengxiao's face softened for a moment. Then he shook his head and said, but now they are not in Mount Dibbing. I can't let you see them. What a pity. Lin Fengting sighed with some regret. Then there was silence. Neither of them spoke. Wang Shengxiao still looked at him, quiet, calm, without any emotion. Lin Fengting didn't know what to say. He didn't expect to be found here. Now he was caught. It seemed that whatever he said was wrong, but it didn't seem right to say nothing. Hide again? Lin Fengting recalled Wang Shengxiao's performance just now. Although he didn't know how the other party found him, he felt that if he hid again, Wang Shengxiao might not be able to find him again. But Lin Fengting couldn't be so shameless after all. Should he just leave? Thinking about it, he felt a little unwilling. I'm here to confirm something. Lin Fengting was silent for a long time before he spoke. This time, he didn't hide anything and simply told the truth. What is it? Wang Shengxiao raised his eyebrows, but his body tensed up. Have you seen it? Lin Fengting asked. Wang Shengxiao frowned and shook his head, saying, I don't know what you're talking about. You don't have to hide anything. In fact, it's meaningless to hide. Let's not talk about our current relationship. At the beginning, Beihai and the Lin clan were inseparable. I can know the existence of that thing. How can you not know? Or, did you misunderstand the meaning of inseparable? Do you think Beihai can have that thing? Doesn't the Lin clan have it? Lin Fengting asked. Wang Shengxiao frowned more tightly. He glanced at Lin Fengting and said slowly, I didn't mean that, but I really don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know why you think so. Human Emperor. Lin Fengting said calmly, a day ago, I was still enjoying the spring in the southern hemisphere, but I learned the conditions you negotiated with Tianlan. You're willing to hand over the Human Emperor, so there's only one possibility. That thing has recovered. We have no choice but to hand over the Human Emperor. We do need the help of Li Tianlan and Emperor Dong's palace, but this doesn't prove anything. Really? Lin Fengting asked blandly. The Human Emperor is the core foundation of the Wang family of Beihai, and in your current situation, you may not have to use such an important thing to make allies. This is not a choice. In my opinion, this is giving up. You can give up the Human Emperor only because the Wang family of Beihai has something better than the Human Emperor. Shengxiao, what are you worried about? Are you worried that I'll take it by force? Even if I'm really so despicable, that thing is here. Can I take it away? I'm not even sure if I'm a match for it. In that case, why are you so persistent? Just to have a look? Just to have a look. Lin Fengting nodded seriously. To see what it is that can really protect such a glorious family. Uncle Lin, you can go home and have a look. Wang Shengxiao stared at Lin Fengting's face. You just said that the Lin clan also has what the Wang family of Beihai has. That's why I came to have a look. I can't find that thing. He spread his hands. I can't find it in Beihai, nor can I find it in the Lin clan. It's been decades, and I don't know where it is. I only know that it's within the scope of Worry-Free Villa. Who knows what it is? If you can't find it, can Beihai find it? Wang Shengxiao shook his head. I know you can't find it either, but that was before. But now you've given up on the Human Emperor, so I can only think that during this period of time, you've established some kind of connection with it. I want to see it, and even want to know how to make it recover. This is very important for the Lin clan. Lin Fengting looked at Wang Shengxiao with a serious and peaceful expression. He really just wanted to have a look. And it seemed that he could only have a look. Wang Shengxiao shook his head. I can tell you that it does exist, but I can't give you other answers. He moved his body and said, Uncle Lin, if you don't want to have breakfast here, I'll arrange a car to take you down the mountain. Lin Fengting narrowed his eyes. He hesitated, changed the angle, and tentatively said, What if I have to have a look? Wang Shengxiao's tightly frowned brows raised slightly for a moment. Does it make sense? He asked. If it doesn't want to see you, you can't find it. For it, neither the Lin clan nor Beihai is the place it wants to protect. It just wants to be complete. At this time, it can't take any risks. Lin Fengting was silent. Wang Shengxiao smiled. He was a little tired and whispered, Uncle Lin, don't force me. I'm no match for you now. But since you're on Mount Dibbing, I'm not helpless. I just don't want to become that kind of monster. I don't want to kill you until that point. That thing shouldn't be used on you. Chapter 8:18. In Samsara Palace, Saint was the most idle. In Emperor Dong's palace, Saint was also the most idle. Different positions meant different responsibilities to be shouldered. Military counselor and Flaming Fire's original positions were to escort Li Tianlan's growth. One of them mastered force, and the other mastered resources. Both of them could play an irreplaceable role in Li Tianlan's growth. But Saint was different. From the very beginning, he was regarded by the master of Samsara Palace as Li Tianlan's future right-hand man. Now Li Tianlan was cultivating his sword in the desert prison. As his right-hand man, Saint had nothing to do other than guarding the wounded in the hospital. The power inside Mount Shu was now shifting. Nirvana sword was still transcendent. But Han Chongyang, the Yin and Yang sword master, had begun to appear more and more in public view, and began to shoulder the responsibility of the head. For more than a year, Saint had been staying in the hospital, and hadn't even returned to Mount Shu. He was withdrawing. Even Nirvana sword was put back in Mount Shu as he joined Emperor Dong's palace. That was the place where he grew up. His family, including his parents, were all from Mount Shu. That place had given him too many things. Joining Emperor Dong's palace was his promise and responsibility. But obviously, he didn't want to involve Mount Shu when he was already involved in the internal game of Zhongzhou State. The days of guarding the hospital were very ordinary. He was a wounded person and spent most of his time in his ward. He rarely appeared unless there were special circumstances. As for entertainment, he occasionally played poker with Gong Sun Qi and chess with Situ Songyue, so he didn't feel bored. But as the atmosphere between the parliament and Beihai kept changing, especially after he followed Wang Shengxiao to the Wang family of Beihai 3 days ago, the atmosphere of the whole hospital seemed to be changing. More and more people came to the hospital. Everyone had their own reasons to visit Saint and the wounded, but there was only one purpose: to test the specific attitude of Emperor Dong's palace. Saint received some people patiently, but within a day, he shut himself in the ward again and refused to visit, saying that he was not feeling well. It's not good to hide like this. In the quiet ward, black and white were intertwined on the delicate chessboard. Situ Songyue put down the chess piece in her hand, looked at Saint, and said with a faint smile, "Today a lot of people came. What can I do? Everyone wanted an attitude from me, but the problem was, how could there be an attitude in this matter?" Tianlan was still in the desert. Someone went to the desert to ask him. One by one, they came to torment him. What was this? Bully the weak and fear the strong? Saint said grumpily. Whether before or now, although there was a gap in age between the two, there was no difference in status. No one would think that the status of the city governor of Sai City was much higher than that of the sword master of Mount Shu, especially Wei Kunlun, the first sword master. Now that he had entered the invincible realm, the difference in status between the two had been completely wiped out, and they were completely equal when communicating. Someone's gone. Situ Songyue smiled and said, "Didn't the president and the prime minister go?" Saint was silent for a while and shook his head, not knowing what to say. Has Tianlan really decided? Situ Songyue said, "Fully cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai?" Saint agreed and said frankly, There is no good choice. Tianlan may think about the future of Emperor Dong's palace and nothing else. But in my opinion, if he accepts the conditions of the president and the prime minister, Kunlun City will inevitably fight back with all its strength. At that time, the situation will be more chaotic. This choice is good for everyone. A lot of people are waiting for you to say that, Situd Songyue said thoughtfully. It will take some time. Emperor Dong's palace, the giant group, the southeast group, and the Wang family of Beihai all need some time to prepare. Saint shook his head. It was really not the time to show his attitude. Although he had shown some obvious inclinations when he went to the Wang family of Beihai with Wang Shengxiao, since he did not make it clear, Zhongzhou State would not take any drastic action. But even so, he paid a little price for going to the Wang family of Beihai. 3 days was not a long time, but a batch of funds originally planned to be secretly allocated to Xianyuan City was temporarily put on hold. It could not be said that Zhongzhou State was overly sensitive or petty. It was just a warning. Zhongzhou State was also using this reaction to show their determination. There was no doubt that once Emperor Dong's palace completely decided to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai, then Zhongzhou State would not hesitate to fully suppress Emperor Dong's palace. Such a reaction also made Saint secretly vigilant. At least at this time, he could not show the attitude of Emperor Dong's palace to the outside world. They might not have too much time, but the later they showed their attitude, the better. Every extra day meant one more day of preparation. At that time, they would not be struggling under the suppression of Zhongzhou State. Drag it on. Saint took a light breath and laughed at himself. When it can't be dragged on, life will be difficult. How long do you think it will last? Situd Songyue asked. Emperor Dong's palace, the Wang family of Beihai, and the parliament. The game was only an internal matter of Zhongzhou State. No matter how tragic it was, no one would really define the other party as an enemy. Now both sides of the game only needed a result. Whether the result was good or bad, as long as it appeared, it meant the end of the matter. After the game, the next step was naturally to compromise. After Emperor Dong's palace showed its attitude, the following days would indeed be very difficult. But as long as the result appeared and a new balance and conditions acceptable to all parties were reached, the assistance would continue. This itself was the condition of balance, and it could even be said to be the most important condition. Who knows? Saint shook his head. Maybe it will be very fast, maybe it will be very slow. I guess at least we have to wait until this time next year. You won't do anything this time? Situd Songyue was a little curious. Saint nodded and said calmly, Minister Wei Tianheng came to see me yesterday. Situd Songyue's eyes narrowed and became extremely focused. Wei Tianheng. He was a member of the parliament of Zhongzhou State and the deputy minister of the army headquarters. He ranked below Dongqing Wudi and Yi Dongsheng and was in charge of national defense. He was one of the leaders of the prince group who stood on the front stage now. In terms of blood relationship, he was Saint's eldest brother. They were brothers who were 13 years apart. However, the relationship between the two was not very good. To some extent, it could even be said to be bad. If Emperor Dong's palace cooperated with Beihai, the cooperation between the giant group and the southeast group would inevitably be closer. The army headquarters would also become one of the main battlefields of the game. At that time, Wei Tianheng would face the double pressure from Dongqing Wudi and Yi Dongsheng. So it was completely understandable that he could not sit still and came here first. What did he say? Situd Songyue said slowly. He told me that if Emperor Dong's palace chose to stand by Mount Dibing, then this game would become a real war. He asked me if Emperor Dong's palace was ready to be defeated. Saint held the chess piece in his hand, expressionless. Ah, Situd Songyue sneered. How did you answer him? I don't need to answer anything, and I don't think he is in the mood to listen to me. Saint shook his head. There is nothing to answer. At this point, we can only move forward. If we don't win, we will die. Let's go all out. Chapter 8:19. Lin Fengting stayed in Mount Dibing for 3 consecutive days. Wang Shengxiao entertained him with good food and drinks and didn't insist on driving him away. The Lin clan and the Wang family of Beihai might not be friends now, but at least they were not enemies. Obviously, They didn't want to treat each other as enemies. Lin Fengting came to Mount Dibing uninvited, but since he was here, Wang Shengxiao, as a junior, naturally had to show due courtesy. Lin Fengting was arranged to stay in a palace not far from Emperor Hall. During the day, Wang Shengxiao accompanied him almost all the time. At night, a large number of elites of the internal security force faintly surrounded the palace. They didn't hide their defensive posture at all. It was clear that they hoped Lin Fengting would leave as soon as possible. Wang Shengxiao stayed in the stage of formidable person at night. The sword intent from the deep sea filled the stage of formidable person. He integrated with the sword intent and could clearly feel every corner of Mount Dibing, observing Lin Fengting's movements. Lin Fengting didn't intend to look for that thing. Although he didn't move, the dense sword energy was shuttling in every corner of the top of the mountain, starting from the palace where he lived. Wang Shengxiao could clearly feel the fine cracks caused by the opponent's sword energy tearing the space. But Lin Fengting never noticed the majestic sword energy on the stage of formidable person. Wang Shengxiao was calm and collected. In his perception, Lin Fengting had used sword qi to search every corner of Mount Dibing in the past 3 days, but he had found nothing. Lin Fengting was undoubtedly a person who abided by the rules. After his hidden whereabouts were exposed by Wang Shengxiao, he didn't hide anymore on Mount Dibing. After making sure that he couldn't find the clue of that thing, Wang Shengxiao's mind gradually shifted from him to the internal purge. 3 days ago, Xianming, who controlled all the intelligence organizations of the Wang family of Beihai, officially accepted most of the elites of Jiangnan society in Beihai. Wang Shengxiao personally transferred Lu Shuanghua, the person in charge of Jiangnan society, to Beihai. A large number of intelligence experts dug deep inside Beihai, looking for all the clues. 2 days ago, Wang Shengxiao decided to tentatively attack 2 suspicious places in Beihai. One of the 2 places was empty. The other one, on the other hand, met with fierce resistance. Several swordsmen from East Island broke through the encirclement, and dozens of elites of the Beihai Corps were wounded. The fight was fierce and short. The swordsmen of East Island left the hiding place immediately and destroyed all the subsequent clues. The battle ended very quickly. However, this was the first battle that the major powers had clashed with the North Sea Legion after infiltrating the North Sea. After a long period of oppression and scheming, the first sparks of war had already begun to erupt in the increasingly turbulent North Sea. It was precisely because of this short war that it officially confirmed that several superpowers were indeed lurking in Beihai and plotting against Mount Dibing. The previous speculation had evidence in an instant, which meant that everything was on the right track. Wang Shengxiao threw in a massive amount of resources without hesitation. Shenzhou Floating Island, Kenglin Empress, Autumn Water, Tongtian Liuli. The 7 cities and the entire province were like an inescapable net, trapping the elites of the major factions. All the forces in the North Sea were searching for them. When Lu Shuanghua hurried to the stage of formidable person, Wang Shengxiao had just finished a night of meditation, and was about to invite Lin Fengting to breakfast. Seeing the enchantress coming up with the intelligence giant, he was slightly stunned and said slowly, "Uncle Lu, what's the matter?" "Patriarch." Lu Shuanghua nodded. His pace was fast, but his voice and expression were still calm. "I have some important discoveries here, and the target is more important. I need your approval before I start." "Target?" Wang Shengxiao's pupils contracted. At this stage, the task of Xianming and Lu Shuanghua was to investigate some places where the enemy might be lurking. But Lu Shuanghua's words directly located the target. The target and the place were 2 completely different things. "Go ahead." Wang Shengxiao narrowed his eyes and said quietly, "Huangfu Renjie of the Huangfu family." Lu Shuanghua's tone was calm. "I can be sure that he has a very close relationship with Wang Xiaoyao. The relevant evidence is all here. The most important evidence is that, in our surveillance, my people accidentally found that Huangfu Renjie had contact with an intelligence officer of Jifeng's sword training school. Coincidentally, this intelligence officer had participated in some activities in Zhongzhou State. His identity was secretly recorded by us." He handed a document in his hand to Wang Shengxiao. Wang Shengxiao lowered his head and quickly glanced through it. The information was all about some matters and data, including the transfer of some resources. There were also some money transfers and some photos. All of these showed that Huangfu Renjie and Wang Xiaoyao had a close relationship. And Huangfu Renjie's contact with the intelligence officer of Jifeng Sword Training School was the most direct evidence. Wang Shengxiao's expression was still calm, but his eyes were a little gloomy. Huangfu Renjie. He was the number 2 figure in the intelligence system of the Huangfu family. This identity was nothing in the whole North Sea, but inside the Huangfu family, he was one of the high-level core. This meant that Wang Xiaorao had reached into the 7 sword-holding families a long time ago. Huangfu Renjie was the first one. Would there be a second one? Or even a 100th one? How much do you know about the situation? Wang Shengxiao asked slowly. At present, we only have this clue. His identity is a bit special. He is a core member of the sword-holding family, so we can't act rashly. But if we can control him, we can at least take down 1/3 of the latent forces in Qiushui City. This can even be said to be our biggest harvest since the search. I'll take people to Qiushui City, ask the Huangfu family for him, catch him, and kill him. The enchantress's voice was cold and cruel. Lu Shuanghua and Wang Shengxiao shook their heads at the same time. Wang Shengxiao noticed the other party's movement, suppressed his inner emotions and said with a smile, "Uncle Lu, what do you think? If you have anything to say, just say it. You are my father's friend and my elder, so you don't have to worry about anything." Lu Shuanghua raised her head and took a deep look at Wang Shengxiao. After a moment of hesitation, she said, "These places may not necessarily exist in isolation. If Wang Xiaoyao runs a network inside Beihai, then Huangfu Renjie should be a relatively important figure. This person should even play a very important role in helping several superpowers lurk. I suggest we monitor him secretly first, and then slowly." "There's no time." Wang Shengxiao shook his head. "Of course, this is the best way, but Zhongzhou State may not give us too much time. Uncle Lu, what I need is to deter the major forces and alert them. First, we need to destroy some of their forces and disrupt their plans. Huangfu Renjie is a very suitable candidate, but he is a member of the Huangfu family." Lu Shuanghua lowered his head, his eyes flashing, and said in a low voice, "Patriarch, are you sure that the 7 sword-holding families are on our side?" Chapter 820. To this day, would the 7 families still stand on Wang Shengxiao's side? This question was very heart-wrenching, but it was also very realistic. The significance of the existence of the sword-holding families was to help Mount Dibing stabilize the situation in Beihai. It was necessary to unite against foreign enemies. But the biggest problem facing Mount Dibing now was not foreign aggression, but internal worries. It was Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Qinglei. Wang Xiaoyao was now an expert of the invincible realm. After Dijiang was expelled and Wang Tianzong disappeared, he was now the only expert of the invincible realm in the Wang family of Beihai. He was only in his 30s this year, and his future was also worth looking forward to. Moreover, he also controlled tens of thousands of elite troops of the Beihai Corps in Snow Country, and even dominated the dark world of Snow Country today. Needless to say, Wang Qinglei, as a person who was determined to rush to the number 1 position in 6 years, did not need to prove any strength at all. The two together might not be able to overthrow Wang Tianzong. But Wang Tianzong was now missing. Objectively speaking, the appearance of Wang Xiaoyao and Wang Qinglei had the capital to shake the minds of many people. How would the 7 sword-holding families choose? Huangfu Renjie was one of the high-level members of the Huangfu family. If he could be roped in by Wang Xiaoyao, would other people in the Huangfu family be roped in by Wang Xiaoyao? And how many people in other families had Wang Xiaoyao roped in? Wang Shengxiao was silent. The enchantress trembled slightly for a moment. Thinking of a possibility, she suddenly shuddered, and then her whole body exuded an even colder killing intent. Nurturing a tiger invites disaster. At this time, no one could be sure what Wang Xiaoyao, who had been unguarded for so many years, had done in secret, and what a terrifying team he had cultivated. Although this possibility was very small, no one could deny that Wang Xiaorao might have roped in a part of the power that was enough to compete with Mount Dibing. Make an appointment with the patriarch of the Huangfu family for me. Wang Shengxiao was silent for a long time, and then said faintly, "I will wait for him for lunch today." Patriarch. Lu Shuanghua wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. It's okay. Wang Shengxiao smiled and said, the patriarchs of the 7 sword-holding families can still be trusted at this stage. My father has not died yet. Even if some people don't know the situation, these patriarchs should always know that not all gambles can be won. Lu Shuanghua hesitated for a moment before nodding. I'll arrange it right away. Wang Shengxiao nodded, looked at him, smiled, and said softly, the work efficiency of Jiangnan Road is good. Huangfu Renjie needs to be taken care of. As for the specific measures, I will discuss it with clan leader Huangfu. I'll let you know after we talk. All right. Lu Shuanghua agreed without hesitation. Are there enough people? If it's not enough, I can send you more people. Wang Shengxiao casually asked. I'm still too busy for the time being. However, regarding the matters of the battle, I'll need the patriarch's help. Lu Shuanghua said. Wang Shengxiao thought for a moment and said, I'll arrange for someone to fight. In addition, I'll adjust your authority later. North of Kanglin, the authority of the members of Jiangnan society will be raised by 1 level. He reached out and pressed his hand on Lu Shuanghua's shoulder. He leaned forward slightly and said with a serious look in his eyes, no matter what, dig them out. Lu Shuanghua took a deep breath and nodded solemnly. Wang Shengxiao still wanted to say something, but his phone suddenly rang. He took out his phone and answered it. A respectful voice sounded on the phone. Your Highness, Mr. Lin said he's leaving. Wang Shengxiao was stunned and said, I'll be there right away. Lin Fengting had been here for 3 days without finding anything. According to his character, he naturally wouldn't stay long. Clan leader, if there's nothing else, I'll go back to Qiushui. I'll go with Huangfu Renjie myself. Lu Shuanghua said. Okay. Wang Shengxiao walked down the stage, a formidable person with him, and shook hands with him. Thank you. Lu Shuanghua said no more. He came and left in a hurry. Wang Shengxiao didn't turn around until his figure completely disappeared, and walked to Lin Fengting's palace. Lin Fengting didn't have any luggage, so he didn't need to pack anything. When Wang Shengxiao walked into the palace, he was sitting on the sofa, quietly drinking tea alone. Seeing Wang Shengxiao come in, he nodded and said gently, Sorry to disturb you these days. Uncle, you're welcome. Wang Shengxiao smiled and asked knowingly, Uncle, did you find anything? No. Lin Fengting said with a faint smile. I tried to find it again, but it obviously didn't want to see me. Wang Shengxiao thought that it didn't have the mood to talk to him now, but he shook his head and said, I'll arrange a car to send you down the mountain. Lin Fengting put down the teacup, got up and walked out of the door. Wang Shengxiao followed him silently. How did you find me that day? Lin Fengting suddenly asked. Did it tell you? Wang Shengxiao shook his head and said nothing. Shaking his head meant many things. So did silence. So Lin Fengting didn't understand. He just suddenly laughed. If I hide myself again, can you still find me? Wang Shengxiao's expression didn't change. He said flatly, Uncle, why don't you have a try? Because this is Mount Dibbing. Lin Fengting said softly. His tone was a little emotional. Then let's thank each other. Wang Shengxiao said slowly. This sentence was a little inexplicable, but Lin Fengting could understand. He nodded. What's your next plan? Wang Shengxiao said with a smile. Where are you going to have fun? Let's take a look in Beihai. Lin Fengting said. Since I'm here, I can't come here in vain. I'll take another look at the old scenery, and then walk around Zhongzhou State. When it's time, I'll go to the desert and then go home. Lin Fengting was a little absent-minded and shook his head. I'm in my 50s. If I walk around the world again, I'll leave. Wang Shengxiao didn't say anything about this. I know what you're suspecting, but your suspicion is unnecessary. I really didn't find that thing in the Lin clan, so I wanted to come and have a look. But since you don't agree, then forget it. Lin Fengting continued. Uncle, you can go home and look for it slowly. You'll find it, Wang Shengxiao said. Lin Fengting shook his head with a smile. Suddenly he reached out and rubbed Wang Shengxiao's hair. You have your worries and I have mine. Forget it, I don't care. I won't see you. Wang Shengxiao laughed. Carefree is the greatest freedom. Lin Fengting nodded. A black car appeared in the distance. Before the car arrived, he took a deep look at Wang Shengxiao and said slowly, I don't know if I'm overthinking it. You gave the coldness of 9 states to Tianlan. I'm afraid you didn't have good intentions from the beginning, did you? Are you plotting against Xian Yuanfeng and the 13th floor? Wang Shengxiao's eyes were calm. He said quietly, It was Tianlan's idea to give me the coldness of 9 states. This was our deal. And I fulfilled the contract. What he said was the truth. It sounded like it. In fact, he didn't say anything when he thought about it carefully. It was a complete nonsense. Lin Fengting smiled. It sounds like it's true. I also hope that it's that simple. But if it's really like what I said. The car stopped beside him. He paused and said slowly, I don't agree with this. If there is such a day, Tianlan and I will wait for you in Warefree Villa. Or you will wait for us on Mount Dibbing. Chapter 8:21. It was early autumn again. It was the rain of early autumn again. The slightly messy rain fell on the streets and alleys of the city, falling on the neon lights lit in the evening, bringing a dense mist. The rain was lazy and casual. The traffic was moving and stopping at the red light, leisurely and quiet. Downstairs, the people who got off work held umbrellas and walked on the rain-soaked stone road, laughing and talking. Young couples walked hand in hand to the nearby snack street, and colleagues discussed what movies to watch after dinner. In front of the small supermarket across the street, the owner of the supermarket held a cigarette and chatted casually with his neighbors in the rain. The students who had just finished school ran across the sidewalk laughing and getting farther and farther away. Qingzhou had always been a leisurely and almost undisciplined city. The extremely slow pace of life allowed everyone living here to integrate into the city. Unlike Yuzhou or Huating, there were tens of millions of people in the vast sea of people, and most of them were passers-by in the city. Simple, leisurely, contented, and carefree. After a day's work, before leaving, she always liked to stand in front of the window and look at the scenery outside. Every time she saw it, she would always think of what her father had said to her and her brother. Being carefree was the greatest freedom. She didn't understand it back then, and she still didn't understand it now. But she gradually fell in love with the current life, the current city, and the current job. It was raining outside the window. Cheerful footsteps rang in the corridor outside the office. She was in a good mood. After drinking the coffee in the cup, she rinsed the coffee cup, and was cleaning up the office when there was a knock on the door. She said, "Come in," in a soft and pleasant voice. Several young girls who had just started working came in with a smile. "Manager, do you have time in the evening? My relative opened a restaurant. It's very clean and tastes good. I'd like to invite you to have a try," the leading girl said with a chuckle, and her eyes were very intimate. She smiled apologetically and shook her head. "Not today." "Well, where's the restaurant? Tomorrow is the weekend. Let's go at noon. How about I treat you?" "I see. Well, I wanted to invite you to watch a movie with me. There's a new movie that's very good recently." The girl was a little regretful. They liked this manager very much. She was very beautiful, not just any kind of beauty, but the kind of beauty that even people of the same sex couldn't have the slightest bit of jealousy. Such beauty didn't have any aggressiveness. Gentle, generous, and demure, everyone in the company liked this easygoing administrative manager. Compared with the timid male colleagues, most of the women in the company liked to chat with her. Some girls who had just graduated from school in the same department even unconsciously imitated her every word and action. "Maybe next time. I really have something this time." She smiled gently and picked up the small lady's handbag on the table. A low-end lady's handbag that cost 100 or 200 yuan looked a little old, but in her hands, it didn't look cheap at all. "All right." The girls pouted and then laughed. "Manager, we're leaving. Let's watch a movie together next time." "What movie?" A voice came from outside the office. She was stunned, then smiled and said, "President He." The girls lowered their voices. "Hello, President He." Dressed in a business suit with her long hair tied up, He Yishui walked in and smiled. "Are there any good movies recently?" Next during the shift, the president of the Sushui group looked much softer, but facing the boss, the girls in the administrative department were still a little nervous. "Ah, there's one. It's a sci-fi movie. It's very good. He Ishui nodded and didn't say anything else. The girls stuck out their tongues, secretly waved at the manager in the office and rushed out. Look, you scared them all. Standing in the office, she tilted her head and chuckled. What? I'm very approachable today, okay? He Ishui frowned and waved his hand. When he was with her, she seemed a lot younger. She smiled and glanced at the thing in He Ishui's hand. It was a very delicate small gift box. This is? She slightly raised her eyebrows. A gift. He Ishui smiled and said, a gift for Tide. Thank you. She smiled and didn't say anything. The friendship between them had been slowly cultivated over a year. At first, she was just an ordinary clerk, and he was the president. When she first came to Susui for an interview, it was He Ishui who accompanied her through all the procedures. On the first day of work, it was He Ishui who brought her to the company. Then, she was transferred to the administrative department, deputy manager, and they became friends, or even best friends. She once asked He Ishui why he treated her so well. And He Ishui's answer was absolutely convincing. Because of her looks. She often thought that the gradual recovery of her mood might be mostly because of Tide. And a small part of it might be because of this best friend in front of her, who was like a sister and a little sister at the same time. She reached out to take the gift. However, He Ishui hid the gift behind his back. No, this isn't a gift for you. This is for little Tide. Gifts have to be given personally to show sincerity. Let's go freeload. I want to go to your house to freeload. She glared at him and waved the small bag in her hand. Then let's go. What do you want for dinner? I have food in my car. Let's go in my car. I won't go back tonight. He Ishui followed beside her, his voice very lively because of the joy. She let out a nonchalant hum. It's still the same thing as last time. The two of them got into He Ishui's car. He Ishui started the car and said with a smile, Miss Li Mutong, I'm once again inviting you to move to a new house. It's great that you move in with us. My house is very big, and my parents are very welcoming of you. You can go to work during the day, and little Tide can be left at home. There will be someone to take care of her. I have a big family, and I don't need a pair of chopsticks. No need. Li Mutong shook her head. It's too troublesome. Besides, I really like where I live now. Although it's a little small, it's very comfortable. What about little Tide? He Ishui glanced at her. I'm going to hire an aunt. Li Mutong smiled. There was a warm and dazzling glow on her young and beautiful face. An aunt can take care of little Tide during the day. I've installed a surveillance camera. She's a very good person, and she treats little Tide very well. I'm very relieved. I'm really defeated by you. How can an outsider take care of his own people better than an outsider? Li Mutong still shook her head and insisted. An aunt is a professional. He Ishui sighed and stopped the topic. There was a moment of silence in the car. All right. He Ishui suddenly said, Do you have any plans for the National Day holiday? Li Mutong thought for a moment. I'll just stay at home and accompany Tide. Isn't that good? What era are we in? He Ishui shook his head. We should go out for a walk. We're in Zhejiang, right? I wanted to go a few years ago, but I didn't have the chance. Usually, when I visit my clients, I'm always in a hurry, so I haven't had the chance to have a good look. Let's go together. Li Mutong shook her head, and her eyes were in a trance. She said absent-mindedly, I still like Qingzhou. Besides, Tide is still young. It's not suitable for her to go out. He Ishui thought about it seriously and said softly, That's true. Children are troublesome, but they are also very cute. Sometimes I envy you, but, she shook her head. Let me be little Tide's godmother. You don't even have a child yourself. Li Mutong laughed. What's wrong with that? He Ishui shook her head, and her face dimmed for a moment. She was already 34 years old this year. She had a failed marriage, but she did not have a child. She used to think that she did not like children, but since she met little Tide, she had changed her mind unconsciously. The black Audi shuttled through the autumn rain, and finally drove into an ordinary residential area in Qingzhou. He Ishui and Li Mutong were busy moving the food from the trunk into the car. In the house that was less than 100 square meters, A kind-looking aunt who looked about 50 years old was slowly walking in the living room with a small baby in her arms. When she saw Li Mudong, she smiled and nodded. Tide just woke up from wetting the bed. She didn't have time to wash up. Let's put her to sleep first. Let me do it. Li Mudong changed her clothes, washed her hands, and carefully held the baby in her arms. The little baby opened his eyes and wrapped one of his fingers. When he saw his mother, he grinned. At this moment, Li Mudong's heart seemed to have completely melted, and she looked even more gentle. She took out the baby's finger, unbuttoned her pajamas with one hand, and fed the baby naturally. He Yishui stayed by Li Mudong's side, and carefully touched the baby's face with her finger. She said softly, "So beautiful. When she grows up, she will definitely be as charming as you." Li Mudong rolled her eyes at He Yishui, and did not say anything. He Yishui looked at the scene quietly, and her eyes were a little complicated. When she first interviewed Li Mudong, she had asked her if she had a boyfriend, and if she was married. Li Mudong said that she was not married, and she did not have a boyfriend. She thought that she was pregnant at that time, but she did not know it. The baby was born about 3 months ago. The girl's name was Li Chaoshi. He Yishui also asked her who the father of the baby was, but she did not get an answer. Every time she mentioned the father, Li Mudong would remain silent. At that time, her red lips would be tightly pursed, and she looked a little stubborn, a little wronged, a little confused, but most of all, she was strong. She did not mention her family, and she did not mention the father of the baby. Yishui had many guesses. Maybe she had a complete fallout with her family, because of that bastard man? Or that bastard man dumped Li Mudong and found someone else. But what kind of man would abandon a girl like Li Mudong? Was he blind? Was he her university classmate? Or was Li Mudong cheated? There was no answer, because she had never said anything. He Yishui looked at her best friend who was lowering her head to feed the baby. She gritted her teeth, and thought to herself, "Don't let me know who the father of that bastard man is, or I will teach him a lesson." Chapter 822. It was snowing in Eastern Europe. The night was long, and it was snowing heavily. Jiang Shangyu liked rain and didn't like snow. It could even be said that he hated snowflakes very much. He didn't like the snow covering the sky and the earth, the cold and the darkness. Coincidentally, the things he didn't like were all in Eastern Europe. And he was in Eastern Europe now. Autumn gradually passed, and Reki City had entered the everlasting night. The darkness existed for 24 hours, accompanied by snowflakes and icy wind. It was bone-chilling. Therefore, Jiang Shangyu rarely left the station of the Snowdance Corps. But once he left, he often had to walk for a long time. He was still the vice-marshal of the Snowdance Corps. After Li Tianlan resigned from the rank of marshal and the position of commander of the Snowdance Corps, he could be said to be the nominal supreme leader here. The parliament of Zhongzhou State had secretly discussed the Snowdance Corps many times. Someone even proposed to let Jiang Shangyu directly become the commander of the Snowdance Corps, and grant him the rank of marshal. However, Dongqing Wudi had been delaying it. Every time he studied it. After nearly 2 years, he still didn't give a clear result. During this period, some of the middle and high-level officers of the Snowdance Corps had been slightly adjusted. Although it didn't affect the overall situation, the officers who were transferred there were basically figures who could help Jiang Shangyu stabilize his position in the Corps. Obviously, more than one giant hoped that Jiang Shangyu could do something in Eastern Europe and the Snowdance Corps. But for nearly 2 years, Jiang Shangyu really did nothing. He stayed in the Snowdance Corps as if he didn't exist at all. He didn't express any opinions at the Corps meeting. Every meeting, he drank a cup of tea until the end of the meeting. Silence was golden. He didn't intervene in the specific affairs of Reki City, or even the 5 countries in Eastern Europe. Since the chaos in Eastern Europe, for nearly 2 years, the relationship between the giants of the giant group and the 5 countries in Eastern Europe had become closer. With the full cooperation of the Flourishing Age Fund, Emperor Dong's palace had completed the shareholding of the giants of the 5 countries in Eastern Europe during this period. Xianyuan City was developing rapidly, and Emperor Dong's palace had begun to take root here quickly. Almost every day, a large amount of money gathered toward Emperor Dong's palace. Jiang Shangyu had been watching silently, keeping his composure and never expressing any opinions. Within the corps as Jiang Shangyu's secretary, Lu Dongyang increasingly couldn't understand what Jiang Shangyu was doing. He could be said to be the closest person to Jiang Shangyu in the entire corps. But after getting along with him for more than a year, he had never understood what Jiang Shangyu was thinking. He wasn't pretending. He really didn't care about everything in Eastern Europe, or rather, he didn't care about it at all. Scramble for power? Attack Li Tianlan's team? Become the parliament's bargaining chip in exchange for more support? He really didn't think about it, or rather he didn't care. Every once in a while, Jiang Shangyu would leave the army station. Asking for leave was symbolic. Every time Dongqing Wudi approved the documents for leave, it was as timely as sending a text message. Jiang Shangyu really hated the cold and night here, so every time he left, he would look better after coming back. As a major officer of Zhongzhou State, after Lu Dongyang came to the Snowdance Corps, he had no other feeling of being close to a big shot except for the promotion of his military rank. As the secretary of the vice marshal of the Snowdance Corps, what he did most on weekdays was to take care of Jiang Shangyu's food and drink. Internal affairs of the army? The officers of the legion controlled by Dongqing Wudi and Li Tianlan did not take Jiang Shangyu seriously. Jiang Shangyu didn't take them seriously. Therefore Lu Dongyang, who was stuck in the middle, became more and more confused. Intensive knocking sounds kept ringing in the office of the vice marshal of the Snowdance Corps. When Lu Dongyang walked into the conference room with the documents, Jiang Shangyu was staring intently at the screen in front of him, which was originally used for the meeting, and the controller in his hand was clicking. The little man on the screen killed one monster after another with sharp movements. His movements were smooth and pleasing to the eye. Jiang Shangyu was humming happily and playing games. He didn't notice that there was one more person in the office. General. Lu Dongyang felt a little uncomfortable. Every time he saw his immediate boss abandon himself, he felt even more uncomfortable. Dongyang is here. Let's do it. There's a controller next to him. Let's play together. Let me tell you, I defeated the boss of the last level. I studied it all night last night. Hee, it was comfortable. Watch me perform this level. F***ck. Jiang Shangyu's complacent smile suddenly changed, and he screamed. Lu Dongyang turned his head numbly and glanced at it. The colorful screen had become black and white. The fierce and domineering character in the game had been lying on the ground. Lu Dongyang shook his head and handed over the document in his hand. General, this is the document from the parliament. Take a look. Oh, okay. Jiang Shangyu responded, took the document, and put it aside. The next moment he picked up a guide and muttered, "What kind of skill is it? It's so powerful. I almost have divine equipment, but I was still killed in seconds?" General. The corner of Lu Dongyang's mouth twitched, and he emphasized, "This is a document from the Parliament of Zhongzhou State." Nonsense. Jiang Shangyu held the guide in his hand. This is obviously a past secret book. Lu Dongyang took a deep breath and said softly, "The Parliament asks you to return to Yuzhou to report on your work and discuss the future allocation of officers of the Snowdance Corps. Reset." Jiang Shangyu paused while flipping through the secret book and narrowed his eyes. Lu Dongyang's eyes flashed with excitement. "General, I think our chance has come." "Yes." Jiang Shangyu nodded casually. "Different from you. I think we're going to die." Lu Dongyang's face changed, and he was a little surprised and doubtful. "General, it's been less than 2 years, and you can't hold back." Jiang Shangyu shook his head. "The parliament is powerful, but no matter what, it can't go too far. Isn't Beihai busy enough? Do you want to get Emperor Dong's palace involved again?" He turned off the game, turned on the TV, and adjusted the playback of the news broadcast of Zhongzhou State. On the news, on different occasions, Li Huaqing and Chen Fangqing spoke at the same time, in unison, emphasizing the importance of unity and the local parliament to maintain a high degree of consistency with the parliament of Zhongzhou State. Their words were full of mystery. Jiang Shangyu pointed to the TV. "Look at their faces." Lu Dongyang was a little stunned. "Move against Beihai." In the beginning it was just moving against Beihai. Now the spearhead has pointed directly at Mount Dibing. Beihai is the bottom line of the Wang family of Beihai, and Mount Dibing is their lifeline. But it's nothing. Zhongzhou State has the right to do so. What about here? Let me go back to Yuzhou to report on my work and study personnel? What is this place? The reason why Xianyuan City can develop so fast in Tiannan is that the capital here is crucial, or even the most important thing. This is Li Tianlan's lifeline. I really can't figure it out. They have one foot on the bottom line of Beihai, and the other on Li Tianlan. Do they really think they can trample these two forces to death? If they can't be trampled to death, the next step is to rebound. He pointed to the TV screen. These two. I can only see greed on their faces. I can be sure that at least one of them has a psychological problem. On the surface, the parliament occupies the highest point of the overall interests of Zhongzhou State. But Li Tianlan, Mount Dibing, the Southeast Group, and the Giant Group, are they really weaker than the Academy and the Prince Group? Li Tianlan can destroy the chief family for Xianyuan City. Are they not sober enough to instigate me to stand out? He looked at the news on the screen and tooted. Who the hell is it? Do they think I have a long life? Dongyang. He glanced at the secretary beside him and smiled. You've worked hard during this period, but you should work harder next. He touched his face. In the cold air, his face was abnormally pale. I'm not feeling well. Send a document to the army headquarters in my name. I'll apply for a vacation. It'll take about 2 years. That's all. Chapter 823. The Army Ministry of Yuzhou. In the office of the Executive Minister, Dongqing Wudi frowned slightly. He looked thoughtfully at the facts on the table, and then at Jiang Shangyu on the screen in front of him. His eyes were a little playful. Jiang Shangyu sat quietly on the sofa and looked straight into Dongqing Wudi's eyes with a smile. At this moment, he was not as decadent and happy as when he played games, nor was he as gentle and casual as when he was at the army meeting. He just smiled quietly. There was nothing in his smile, but it seemed to contain everything. Dongqing Wudi couldn't tell what he was thinking at all. Unfathomable. Although he was reluctant to use this word to describe a young man, this was the feeling Jiang Shangyu gave him at this moment. This feeling was subtle. Dongqing Wudi felt a little familiar. It was just like when he saw Qin Weibai for the first time. Deep. Qin Weibai's eyes were deep, cold, and indifferent. She was high and mighty, but it also contained deep affection and persistence like the surging waves. Jiang Shangyu, on the other hand, was only deep like an abyss, dark and bottomless. Dongqing Wudi took a light breath and knocked on the facts on the table. He said in a deep voice, Vice Marshal Jiang, are you going to resign? No, I'm just asking for a vacation. Jiang Shangyu said calmly, with a very proper and polite posture. I hope the minister can approve it. 2 years of vacation? Dongqing Wudi asked again. Of course he had to approve it. In fact, Jiang Shangyu's appointment as the vice marshal of the Snowdance Corps had always been a thorn in the heart of the Giant Group. Today's Giant Group was going all out to absorb the blood of the 5 Eastern European countries. This was the country that Li Tianlan had fought for. The huge interests in it were also the greatest confidence for Dongqing Wudi to promote Li Tianlan and stabilize his position within the Giant Group. But there was Jiang Shangyu in the 5 Eastern European countries. Dongqing Wudi couldn't tolerate it at all, but there was no good way for the time being. Fortunately, Jiang Shangyu was very sensible and almost never intervened in the food of the army. But even so, Dongqing Wudi still could not rest assured. Li Tianlan had decided to cooperate with the Wang family of Beihai. In today's Zhongzhou State, if he really wanted to find a person who could barely balance Li Tianlan, Jiang Shangyu was undoubtedly the only candidate. Dongqing Wudi could fully imagine what the parliament would do when Li Tianlan completely joined forces with the Wang family of Beihai. Compared with attacking Xianyuan City, it was undoubtedly more effective to directly attack the 5 countries in Eastern Europe. And at that time, Jiang Shangyu would also become the most heavyweight chess piece, even within the parliament of Zhongzhou State. There were already rumors that Jiang Shangyu would be promoted to Marshal of Zhongzhou State as an exception. It was impossible that Jiang Shangyu didn't know this. But at such a critical moment, Jiang Shangyu actually wanted to take a vacation. What was the difference between taking 2 years of leave and resigning? Dongqing Wudi could almost see the disappointed faces of Li Huaqing and Chen Fangqing. But for Dongqing Wudi, this was undoubtedly the most satisfactory result. He will certainly approve it. But he had to ask for the reason. Now Jiang Shangyu was a lieutenant general of Zhongzhou State. Even if he did not serve in the Snowdance Corps, he was still a lieutenant general of Zhongzhou State. The army headquarters must give such a person the necessary care. Because of my health. Jiang Shangyu nodded and whispered. I've always been in poor health, and the climate in Eastern Europe is too bad. It's not suitable for me to cultivate. You should understand. Dongqing Wudi narrowed his eyes. I need a report. Why are you in poor health? If he was injured, where did he get injured? I understand. Jiang Shangyu laughed. This sentence was very interesting. It didn't matter why he was in poor health or where he got injured. Maybe the army headquarters would investigate it in the future, but at this stage it didn't matter. What mattered was that Dongqing Wudi needed a report. The content of the report didn't matter, as long as Dongqing Wudi believed it. At this time, even if Jiang Shangyu wrote in the report that his injury was caused by self-mutilation, Dongqing Wudi could believe it. The detailed report will be sent to Yuzhou by tonight, Jiang Shangyu said slowly. Dongqing Wudi nodded and said, My secretary, Comrade Dongyang, is very good. Minister, I haven't been in the Snowdance Corps for a long time, but there are always a few people. I find that they are buried. They are completely suitable for a higher position, and are qualified to take on more responsibilities. Jiang Shangyu suddenly said. Dongqing Wudi was stunned. He sat in the chair and didn't speak. Jiang Shangyu. Was he going to take a step back? Dongqing Wudi's eyes flickered. There was no doubt that the list Jiang Shangyu said next was the condition for him to take a step back. 2 years of leave. This was almost equivalent to resignation in disguise. He gave up the position of Vice Marshal of the Snowdance Corps in exchange for the promotion of a group of people. It could be foreseen that these people would also be in the Snowdance Corps for a long time. When they left the Snowdance Corps, their military ranks would definitely be raised by 1 level. At that time, these people would be Jiang Shangyu's team. Farsighted? Dongqing Wudi preferred to regard this kind of plan as calmness. Jiang Shangyu was really calm. Wang Shengxiao became the patriarch of the Wang family of Beihai and played with Zhongzhou State. Li Tianlan became the palace lord of Emperor Dong's palace and occupied Tiannan. As a figure who was almost as famous as them, Jiang Shangyu's mentality was not unbalanced at all. He just made his own plan with peace of mind. He was not shocked by honor or disgrace, and calmly built his own force. 3,000 realms? Dongqing Wudi suddenly asked. Jiang Shangyu was stunned. His eyes were in a trance for a moment, and he laughed. I'm looking forward to it. Dongqing Wudi nodded. The report needs to be postponed for a few days. Jiang Shangyu said. He gave up the position of Vice Marshal of the Snowdance Corps, and Dongqing Wudi had to hold it in his hands. Even the position of Commander of the Snowdance Corps, he had to take it in one go. These days were the time for Dongqing Wudi to operate in secret, and it was also the time for Jiang Shangyu to build his own team. The conflict between the Wang family of Beihai and Zhongzhou State would only become more and more intense. For now, there was no possibility of reconciliation between the two sides for at least a year. Jiang Shangyu could do a lot of things during this period of time. Dongqing Wudi suddenly felt a little emotional. Standing in his position, he had seen too many young talents, such as Li Tianlan, Wang Shengxiao, and many people. But Jiang Shangyu seemed to be the most sober one. He was also the one who knew how to compromise and give in the most. Many people might not understand a truth. Being strong and giving in were actually just means and choices. The most important thing was how much benefit could be gained behind this choice. Even Dongqing Wudi himself was not sure at the moment when he turned off the video. With the conclusion of this deal, in the future, the so-called 3,000 realms would become the 7th group of Zhongzhou State. He stood in the office and thought for a long time before he grabbed the phone and dialed. Minister. Bai Qianzhao quickly answered the phone and said in a serious tone. Dongqing Wudi hummed and asked, Do you want to move? Move. Bai Qianzhao, who was trying his best to take the position of Secretary General of the Army Headquarters, and attack the status of a member of Parliament, was a little stunned. Where to? Dongqing Wudi was silent for a while and said, Eastern Europe. Bai Qingzhao was stunned for a long time before he shook his head. I'm not suitable. Dongqing Wudi smiled and said slowly, how about third brother? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.